Part 46. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 463. Zhu Huntang saw Bai Hui's fingers tightly holding the plush legs of the rabbit and bear bag. It was a bag in the shape of a small animal. Of course it had 2 legs and 2 hands. He put on the small animal hat. It looks like a rabbit, but when you take off the hat, it looks like a bear. Basically, this inexpensive rabbit bear bag is the standard for MS Lo. Its cute and childish style is very popular among fairies. Zhu Huntang felt that Bai Hui looked a little stupid, as if she had just been fished out after falling into the water, so he glanced at her phone and saw the messages from An Nuan and Lu Chang'an. Disgusting, Zhu Huntang couldn't accept it. Didn't he want Zhu Huntang to call An Nuan grandma? Zhu Huntang would rather die than obey. Zhu Huntang was just trying to make sure that he would never give in, and then he remembered that he was calling Lu Chang'an grandpa just for fun, and he was not really grandpa. If he were really grandpa, then he would be the second most senior person in the world. Ha 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 ha. No, what was he thinking about? Zhu Huntang came back to his senses, looked at Bai Hui suspiciously, and then suddenly realized that he had always thought that Bai Hui's attitude towards Lu Chang'an was actually similar to his own towards Lu Chang'an. I think Lu Chang'an hates him but also likes to play with him. Bai Hui seems to like Lu Chang'an, not just to play with him, but to like him as a person, a secret love kind of thing. Among the many sufferings in the world, secret love is one. In this life for us fairies, as long as we have a beautiful little skirt, an elegant style, a refined life, and arrogant attitude, that's all. Zhu Huntang touched the erect ears of Bai Fen's rabbit and bear bag. The ears of the bunny and bear bags are all floppy, but the Bai Fen bag has been improved. It seems that 2 shaping wires are put in, and the ears can be put into various shapes, just like this girl's heart. Look at it. Although he looks reserved, in fact once someone takes hold of him, he can really do whatever he wants with him. Zhu Huntang secretly swore that he would never fall in love with a bad old man like Lu Chang'an. Seeing so many women struggling with his little heart, who would join in the fun? Having a fun grandpa is much more interesting than having a crush. What did you say? Suddenly, Bai Hui raised her head, her eyes narrowed slightly, and a smile as usual appeared on her round cheeks. I'm just feeling a little emotional. In fact, when I was in high school, Lu Chang'an was among many classmates. I confess to An Nuan as if I were reading a love poem in front of me. It's not a surprise that he is so high profile now. Actually, it's not like you don't have a chance. Zhu Huntang showed a thoughtful expression. As for Bai Hui's emotion, Zhu Huntang didn't take it seriously. It was as if he was mourning. Most people just find it annoying when they see other people showing affection. Who can express such feelings as I am so sad that XX is dead, I am so sad. You, what are you talking about? What chance do I have? I don't like Lu Chang'an. Bai Hui stuttered as usual when he was nervous. Bai Hui was very depressed. Why did so many people always think that she liked Lu Chang'an even though she clearly didn't like him? Including old friend Miao Yingying, now roommate in the dormitory, and now even Zhu Huntang thinks so. Because you can't have your cake and eat it too, and in fact everyone wants what the fish wants and what the bear's paw also wants. This is human nature, Zhu Huntang said confidently. She once used human nature analysis to conclude that she could. Although Lu Chang'an's judgment later failed, Zhu Huntang believed that Lu Chang'an still could not escape the category of human nature. You mean he wants to ride on 2 boats, Bai Hui was surprised. It's not like that. How can those who want to ride on 2 boats be as shameless as Lu Chang'an? Tell me to show your affection? You see, An Nuan is pretty good looking. Although her appearance is a bit tacky and not very fairy-like, her figure is still good. Her figure is just that her legs are taller. Zhu Huntang asked herself that she was more than enough to be a strategist. As long as he could do something to trouble Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang looked very resourceful, but she has no breasts, but you have big breasts. What are you talking about? Do I have to go, to seduce Lu Chang'an here? Bai Hui said angrily. Her cheeks were only slightly lighter than the eyes on the rabbit and bear bag. She couldn't help but hug the rabbit and bear with both hands. Blocked in front of the chest. What I mean is, En Nuan has En Nuan's advantages, and you also have yours. En Nuan mainly started to take the initiative in high school. This girl pursues men, and there is a veil between them. Zhu Huntang sighed, she just started early. As for you, you must be too arrogant, even I didn't realize until today that you like Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an, a bad old man, has that kind of character. You have to take the initiative and lick him. Even if you are arrogant, he will not pay attention to you. What did you say about licking him, licking or whatever? It's so unpleasant, Bai Hui denied hesitantly. I don't care what happens to En Nuan, I didn't like him in high school, and I still wanted to deal with him in high school. I just want to use him to attack En Nuan. In short, according to my observation, there are currently two women that Lu Chang'an has a favorable impression of. One is En Nuan and the other is Qin Yinan. These two women who are favored by him have one thing in common, that is, they regard Lu Chang'an as some kind of rare treasure. It seems that this En Nuan is my boyfriend, and I like him so much. As for Qin Yinan, just treat it as a wang that comes when called. Zhu Huntang analyzed calmly, holding a customized suit. The gorgeous round fan paired with a low skirt was shaken, and she looked like a female military advisor. Teacher Qin. That's his cousin, how can she be compared with En Nuan? When talking about other people, Bai Hui's tone immediately changed to the kind of person who lowers her voice with a hint of fright when gossiping, and opened her mouth slightly. He looked at Lu Chang'an with wide eyes and disbelief. Her mood is a bit chaotic, and she needs to gossip about others to adjust it. What I mean is, well, anyway, if you want Lu Chang'an to like him, you must lick him. No matter what kind of woman she is, it's useless to be reserved and proud in front of him. Zhu Huntang coughed lightly. You have breasts, which is what Lu Chang'an covets, and what he likes. As long as you lower your figure and be less arrogant, even if Lu Chang'an will not give up En Nuan because of this, he will gradually develop a better impression of you. As time goes by, opportunities can be expected in the future. This, isn't he a two-wheeler? Why should I do this? Bai Hui looked at Zhu Huntang aggrieved and felt absurd. I forced myself in to be the mistress. What kind of naughty idea is this? The mistress is still fine. If you don't line up early, you might not be able to get your turn in the future. Zhu Huntang was purely kind-hearted. How could a guy like Lu Chang'an use ordinary people's skills? A one-to-one relationship between a man and a woman to restrain him? Bai Hui still looked at Zhu Huntang incomprehensibly. Could this be the difference between the brains of Taiwanese people and normal people? Maybe it's because some wealthy people there still have big houses, 2 or 3 bedrooms, and 3 wives and 4 concubines. I want to remind Yaya to take a look. Zhu Huntang immediately sent another message to Qin Yinan. Bai Hui looked at Zhu Huntang blankly. She had just given Bai Hui advice to win over Lu Chang'an, and now she was going to Qin Yinan to stir up trouble? This Zhu Huntang is just watching the excitement and doesn't think it's a big deal, right? For the first time, Bai Hui felt like she had made a careless friend. What Bai Hui can't understand is that teacher Qin is Lu Chang'an's cousin, and she has known about this since high school. Zhu Huntang acted as if Qin Yinan was also very concerned about the movements of Lu Chang'an and En Nuan. What kind of truth is this? Could it be that Qin Yinan could still be jealous? While Zhu Huntang was sending a message, he glanced at Bai Hui's expression and found that Bai Hui was paying attention to her sending a message, so he quickly turned around and carried Bai Hui on his back. To Zhu Huntang's surprise, Qin Yinan saw Lu Chang'an's post about the space and saw the photo of Lu Chang'an and En Nuan, but she was very calm. Qin Yinan even saw it earlier than Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui, because Lu Chang'an was on her special concern list, and as soon as Lu Chang'an posted the space update, she would be reminded to watch it with special concern. What's this? It's not like my wife has never changed. Her younger sister's status has always been stable. It can even be said that as long as she doesn't seek death, her younger sister's status will be much more stable than that of my wife. The one who really feels uncomfortable is the evil woman Sunangziu. Qin Yinan also discovered that Zhu Huntang liked to stir up troubles and let others torment Lu Chang'an. She would just gloat from the sidelines, but Qin Yinan would not let her use her as a gunman. Why is there no movement? Zhu Huntang sent a message to Qin Yinan, but Qin Yinan's reaction was not conveyed for a while, which made Zhu Huntang surprised and a little uninterested. What are you doing? Bai Hui said gloomily. Although she didn't like Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang persuaded Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an that they still had a chance, but then tried to instigate others to interfere in Nuan and Lu Chang'an's affairs. He was like a troublemaker. Forget it, let's go to the Zonghai AP store, and then go to the mall or something. Zhu Huntang remembered that as a friend, it would be considerate to take Bai Hui to relax at this time. Bai Hui was a little excited. She didn't want to admit that she was not in a good mood. She just needed shopping to relieve her ordinary mood. The only way to relieve worries is shopping. Regardless of whether you are happy or unhappy, shopping is always a good thing. I have class tomorrow morning, Bai Hui said hesitantly, so he would have to go today and not come back tomorrow. Let's go, like poor people, we just buy 2 plane tickets and get there quickly. Zhu Huntang is actually not very picky and difficult to serve. She doesn't have to take her own private plane, and she doesn't even ask Atiha as long as it was a first-class cabin at the German level. She could barely tolerate a flight of 1 or 2 hours on a large aircraft. You can pay for the air tickets, Bai Hui pouted, taking advantage of the situation to make herself happy. Then when you buy the skirt, you have to give me something small. Zhu Huntang took Bai Hui's arm and walked out, notifying Zhongqing to accompany him. Okay, then I took advantage. Bai Hui smiled. A girl can be happy for such a simple reason, which fully shows that she actually doesn't care much about a big pig like Lu Chang'an. Notes for this chapter: small things, small accessories that match Lolita dresses, such as hairpins, hairbands, hair hats, and other small things. Take a bite of life game, which is also a daily game. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 464. In the afternoon, Lu Chang'an and Nuan spent a long time strolling around the academy square. The major clubs not only welcomed new recruits, but also held various performances and activities. Nuan got a pack of spicy strips during a golden egg smashing event. She was very happy, and then found out that this was the basic reward, so she thought it was all Lu Chang'an's fault, because if he had smashed it, it might have been the first prize. Because he missed the first prize, Nuan punished him by eating half a pack of spicy strips, and she took the rest to class. Lu Chang'an had no classes in the afternoon. Nuan originally wanted him to accompany her to class, but Lu Chang'an said that this would be too clingy and would lead to the love burnout period earlier, and Nuan received a lot of punches. The Mid-Autumn Festival has passed, and the northwest wind has picked up, blowing again and again on various lakes along the north and south coasts. The hairy crabs raised have gradually become fatter. Various nets have been dropped among the lakes and mountains, and baskets of plump crabs have landed ashore. Along with various express delivery to the north and south of the country. Lu Chang'an wants to eat crabs. In fact, when it comes to eating, it is best to be personally involved in everything from collecting ingredients to making it. This is the real sense of ritual, rather than a few exquisite dishes in a high-end restaurant. After taking some selfies with the bowls and chopsticks, I feel satisfied that I am a person who pursues a sense of ritual. This sense of ritual is essentially no different from placing plates when paying homage to ancestors and ghosts and gods. Is there anywhere near Juncha where I can go fishing for crabs? After thinking about it, Lu Chang'an decided to buy some online. Anyway, he is not a person who pursues a sense of ritual. The sky was dimmed by a layer of gray clouds, and there was no sign of rain. However, the autumn wind no longer had the hot and steamy breath, and it was so cool that it felt uncomfortable, so Lu Chang'an's steps became even faster. Slowly, we arrived at the intersection of Zipping Street. I came here once during the rainy season and bought fabrics to make cheongsam. I also met Qinyanan and the third wife. When I came back in autumn, the scene of continuous rain seemed like yesterday. I opened my eyes and saw that the phoenix trees halfway through the street were clear. The yellowing of the tree is a bit unexpected. Generally speaking, the phoenix trees in Juncha do not dry up so early. The traces of autumn are so obvious, it's time to make new clothes. Lu Chang'an came to explain. Like the top brand counter in Bailong Center, it was very famous, but received very few customers. There was only one clerk in a mellow red skirt standing in front of a pot of chamomile. When he saw Lu Chang'an, the clerk just smiled and said welcome and did not come over to receive him immediately. It seemed that he would only come over when he needed help or asked questions. Wang Jiangzi walked out. Currently, Wang Saimei usually doesn't come to the store. Usually, only Wang Jiangzi comes to receive distinguished guests who have made appointments. She had a good impression of this young man, because on that rainy day, Qinyanan and the third wife of the Zhu family came here. This young man was Qinyanan's cousin and even took away a piece of cloth that Qinyanan had ordered. Have you used the cloth you bought last time? Wang Jiangzi showed a gentle smile, not overly enthusiastic or overly familiar like ordinary businessmen. It's used, it's a very good cloth. Lu Chang'an nodded and looked at the various fabrics stored in the cupboard that looked exquisite under the light. Actually, Professor Lu and I are good friends. I saw the photo of the cheongsam she sent, and I heard that it was made by you. It's really good. Wang Jiangzi remembered that day Professor Lu called to ask if there was a teenager there. She bought the fabric here, and later mentioned on the phone that he had made it and gave it to Professor Liu's daughter. Wang Jiangzi didn't ask any more questions at the time, but in the end she felt a little unbelievable because there were some details in the cheongsam photos sent by Professor Liu. A layman might just take a casual look and think the workmanship is good, but Wang Jiangzi was able to see more details and secret techniques. There are very few people who can master and achieve this level. Thank you. Lu Chang'an nodded. He doesn't seem to feel that it is a joy to be recognized by Wang Jiangzi. His indifference is probably very confident. With such skills, there must be a more amazing master, and he naturally takes the appreciation of others for granted. Do you want to buy some cloth when you come here today? Wang Jiangzi did not directly ask him who he studied under. For a moment, he couldn't think of any of the countless famous masters in the country who accepted such a talented disciple. But the world is huge and the traditional craftsmanship is, although people among the people cannot be said to be as numerous as the crucian carp crossing the river, there are many unknown craftsmen who are not famous but have the skills of masters. Yes. But, we still mainly focus on customization here, and fabrics are generally only provided to customers who make clothes in our store, Wang Jiangzi said with some embarrassment. Oh, I see, sorry to bother you. Lu Chang'an didn't mean to force it, turned around and walked out the door. It seems that the last time Qinyanan gave him a uniform, it was quite a forced thing for him, and the store was not reliable. To make money selling cloth, you mainly need to design beautiful fabrics and attract customers to choose customization. This is the main source of profit. Wait a minute. Wang Jiangzi hurriedly chased after him, but the young man had no intention of discussing with anyone. He was too casual. Lu Chang'an stopped and looked at Wang Jiangzi. Is something wrong? What I mean is, you can borrow the tools in our store to make clothes. We provide the fabrics. I just want to see your craftsmanship. Wang Jiangzi also understood. This person did not try to figure out the euphemistic meaning of other people's words. As a habit, it's better to be straightforward, lest people don't bother to interpret her hidden meaning. Okay, Lu Chang'an nodded without thinking. You can also learn. Sooner or later, this store will have to be supported by yourself. Wang Jiangzi showed a calm smile. What she said was so considerate and so heartwarming. So Lu Chang'an came to Wang Jiangzi's studio upstairs. Wang Jiangzi stayed with him for a while, and saw that he had been looking up information on the computer, looking at various styles of Lolita dresses. Wang Jiangzi is not in a hurry. She is a person who knows how to do business. Of course, she is not so short-sighted, and she is not anxious to verify Lu Chang'an's level. She always has this patience. Lu Chang'an stayed for a while and then went back. He just came to take a look today. When he got home, he had to take a closer look at the little skirt he borrowed. Passing by the vegetable market, Lu Chang'an bought green onions, tofu, and river shrimps and went home. He saw Zhou Dongdong and Lucine, who had just finished school, staying under the sycamore tree. Zhou Dongdong was carrying a small school bag, squatting with his left leg, stretching his right leg back, raising his hands behind his back, holding his head high and craning his neck. Ouch! OM! 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 Ah! Aow! Aow! OM! OM! You stupid dog can't even bark. Zhou Dongdong touched Lu Sin's head. Learn from me again. Ah! OM! 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 Lu Sin continued to make a short sound like the roar of a supercar engine. You are such a stupid dog. Zhou Dongdong was very patient. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an asked. I'm teaching Lu Sin how to bark like a dog. Zhou Dongdong looked at Lu Chang'an while maintaining his position of making it easier for him to roar like a fierce dog. Are you teaching a dog to bark? Lu Chang'an looked at the child incomprehensibly. Zhou Dongdong nodded. Ouch! Even if you want to teach a dog how to bark, I taught you last time that most dogs bark. Lu Chang'an reminded. It seems that his teaching results were a failure. I forgot. Can you forget this? Whoa. I didn't copy it many times in my notebook, so how can I remember it? Lu Chang'an thought for a while and stopped trying to teach Zhou Dongdong how to bark like a dog. Isn't what he did the same as teaching Zhou Dongdong how to bark like a dog? So stupid. After Lu Chang'an realized his mistake, he reflected for 3 seconds before going upstairs to cook. After a while, Zhou Dongdong, who smelled the fragrance, had no intention of teaching Lu Sin how to bark. He hurried upstairs to see what delicious food Chang'an brother was making. Go and ask Sister Dandan to go upstairs for dinner. Lu Chang'an will have to lick a pair of chopsticks from now on. Even though Shangguan Dandan doesn't want to eat, it's okay. She didn't eat anything before, but since he knew that she could eat, Lu Chang'an felt that let's just call each other. After all, we are all acquaintances and neighbors. Zhou Dongdong put down his school bag and ran downstairs, knocked on the door, and called Shangguan Dandan up. Lu Chang'an peeled the tofu, cut the large tofu into 16 even pieces, dried it in a sieve, blew it with the hot air from a hairdryer, put lard in the pot and heated it until it smoked, then put the tofu in and sprinkled it on. Add a little salt, turn the tofu over and add sweet wine, add about 200 river shrimps, boil the water and then add soy sauce, boil for a while and add sugar, and finally add green onions before putting it in the pot. This tofu is called Zhang Shilang tofu. Zhang Shilang was Zhang Saiqi, the second son of Zhang Piyu, a great scholar at that time. He was the Zhou Shilang of the Ministry of Household Affairs. At that time, Yuan Mei was very famous for eating it. He had quite a lot of experience in making tofu when he talked about it. Zhang Shilang say, you haven't eaten the tofu I made, right? That's nothing. Later, Zhang Shilang personally cooked this tofu dish, which impressed Yuan Mei, and passed down the story of Yuan Mei bowing 3 times for a bowl of tofu. It is difficult to verify whether this is what happened at the time, but the tofu is indeed delicious, Many of the good stories and good news of the ancients are actually very similar to the current comments on NetEase Cloud and Zhi, like some stories involving emotional experiences. Lu Chang'an made tofu and called Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong to eat. The two, one large and one small, were sitting neatly on the sofa watching a documentary about tiger sharks. Lu Chang'an took a look and found that the protagonist of the documentary was actually the tiger shark, commonly known as the tiger shark. However, it is not the same thing as the biological tiger shark, and the two are not the same genus. This little tiger shark can dance. Zhou Dongdong turned his head to watch TV and was attracted by the food. He automatically adjusted his direction and walked to the dining table. Maybe he's crazy. Many animals in the animal kingdom look like they are dancing. In fact, it is usually caused by neurological problems that lead to disordered body movements. Aren't there any meat buns to eat today? Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an's dish. Everything Brother Chang'an does is delicious. Zhou Dongdong went to serve the rice. Shang Guandandan accepted the rice bowl handed over by Zhou Dongdong. She didn't have the intention to serve the rice herself, but after Lu Chang'an sat down, she nodded to indicate that everyone could start eating. Zhou Dongdong ignored Shang Guandandan's nod, because she had already eaten 3 shrimps. Go shopping in the evening, Lu Chang'an said to Shang Guandandan. He had already gone out with Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong last time. In the past few days, Shang Guandandan has expanded her activities to the entire community. She has appeared under grapevines, beside walls, under sycamore trees, in garbage dumps, beside chicken coops, and beside vegetable fields. The people in the community are a bit new. After all, she is such a beautiful little girl. She doesn't talk much, but her expressions are always very cute, which is quite lovable. Shang Guandandan took out a rolled-up white paper from his sleeve, opened it, smoothed it on the table, and handed it to Lu Chang'an. Is this what you want to buy? Shang Guandandan nodded. Lu Chang'an didn't look at it much. Shopping is also an important experience to integrate into today's era. She can also write lists, which is good. I still caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, and couldn't help but wonder, tampons. Shang Guandandan ate the tofu in small bites. She didn't have any objection to the 3 people eating one dish, but did he have any objection to whether she should use sanitary napkins or tampons? Because he was eating and there were children, Lu Chang'an did not want to discuss this issue with Shang Guandandan even if the children entered the barrier. After dinner, Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan went to Bailong Center together and sent Zhou Dongdong to the restaurant to do his homework. The two of them went to the supermarket downstairs. Are you really going to have your period? Even though he had bought sanitary napkins for Shang Guandandan many times, Lu Chang'an was still curious about this question. It is not trivial to be curious about this question, because it is a research question in an unknown field, just like an individual would be curious about how to prove that all non-trivial 0 points of the automorphic L function are located on the complex plane Re, S, equal 1/2 is the same on the straight line. Shang Guandandan's eyes bulged. He glanced at the red fire extinguisher first, went up to touch it with great interest, and then glared at Lu Chang'an. Have you never read Ancient Innocence Theory? Woman 7 at the age of 27, the kidney energy is strong, and the hair grows longer. On the 27th, the sunflower arrives, and the menstrual period is at hand. I wrote this article, how can I not know it? Lu Chang'an then asked, then you wouldn't have come when you were sleeping in the coffin, right? But for a long time after you woke up, until I later bought you sanitary napkins, during this period did you have menstruation? How did you deal with it after menstruation? How do you deal with used sanitary napkins? Shangwen's eyes looked around, and his bulging cheeks were stained with layers of blush. Several girls who walked over were looking at Lu Chang'an with perverted eyes. Lu Chang'an didn't care, but Shang Guandandan didn't seem to want to answer his questions. He left him standing next to the fire extinguisher and walked into the supermarket alone. She was outside and had no way of getting into the coffin whenever she encountered a question she didn't want to answer or didn't want to talk. He followed. Shang Guandandan didn't argue with him for a long time. When she walked into the supermarket, her eyes were like a bird in a cage. She liked to look around when being carried for a walk by her owner. Lu Chang'an saw Shang Guandandan standing at the fruit weighing area watching others buying fruits. What fruit do you want to eat? The fruits here are relatively expensive, such as Okayama Haruo grapes, Shizuoka green melons and the like. I want this, Shang Guandandan said, pointing to the weighing meter. Let's go. Lu Chang'an pulled her away. Follow your list and buy tampons first. Lu Chang'an took her to buy tampons. Because she must be a novice, he chose catheter-type tampons for her. The instructions for use are clear at a glance, so she must not have any difficulty using them. If I had gone a few years earlier, how to guide the heroine to use tampons would have been a plot that could fill several chapters in a novel. How do you know this? Lu Chang'an asked casually. In the novel. Lu Chang'an nodded to express his understanding. Many of Shang Guandandan's understanding of modern society came from novels. I think she read female novels. After all, there are very few women in China who use tampons. The author of male novels knows there are very few people who know this stuff, let alone describe the functions and benefits of tampons to impress Shang Guandandan and want to use tampons instead of sanitary napkins. Please give me recommendations and monthly votes to comfort the author who regrets that he cannot guide the heroine to use it. I recommend a good book called Starting with an Archangel. Wang Daliang is a senior who is about to graduate. His biggest hobby is playing various games. But when he was about to leave campus, on a hot summer night when he was woken up by mosquito bites, he suddenly discovered a big secret about his roommate and gay friend. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 465. Shang Guandandan raised his hand, straightened his sleeves, and held a tampon in his other hand and stuffed it into the pocket inside his sleeve. No matter how restored the hanfu designed by modern people is, there are actually very few designs with pockets in the sleeves, and this design was actually widely used until the feudal remnant dynasty. People in movies and TV shows often stretch their hands into their sleeves and take things out little by little behind their wrists. In fact, this is impossible. The position of these sleeve pockets is usually behind the elbow, which is safer and more convenient. It will not increase the burden on the upper arm and affect the movement. The breeze on both sleeves does not mean that the person feels like the wind is blowing when he walks, but that the sleeves contain nothing and are gently blown by the wind, which is a cool and unrestrained state of high spirit. Take it out, you haven't paid yet. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand. Shang Guandandan took it out reluctantly, but did not ask why, because she was not a curious baby like Lu Chang'an, so there were so many questions why she had to ask. Since this is such a request and situation, there must be some reason. Let's observe it secretly first. What else should I buy? Shang Guandandan opened her list a little, revealing 4 words, buy an owl. What else was written at the end? Shang Guandandan glanced at Lu Chang'an, and then revealed the words behind it little by little, remind him to be nice to his mother. After making sure that Lu Chang'an had finished reading, Shang Guandandan slowly and carefully rolled up the list and put it in his sleeve pocket. He glanced at Lu Chang'an with his head tilted and walked nonchalantly to a place that looked like they were selling things. Like, move slowly. Come back, they're selling rice cookers over there. Lu Chang'an called her over. Shang Guandandan nodded. She had seen a rice cooker before. There was one in Lu Chang'an's utility room downstairs. Shang Guandandan pressed every button on it, but nothing worked. During the Han Dynasty, was rarely used. At that time, you mostly used lacquerware for drinking and drinking. Lu Chang'an didn't quite understand her thinking. What's more, where can I buy something like an owl now? Owl refers to an owl-shaped wine vessel. The most famous one is the owl collected by Shaanxi Museum. It became popular because of its cute appearance that resembles an angry bird, so when most people mention it, it refers to the owl, the one collected by Shaanxi Museum. In fact, owls were common in the Yin and Shang dynasties, because some people during the Yin and Shang dynasties regarded owls as their ancestors, and owls were owls. After the Zhou dynasty destroyed the Shang dynasty, they naturally felt that since the owl is your ancestor, it must be suppressed and suppressed. From then on, the reputation of the owl was not good. By the time of Shang Guandandan, the Han people naturally had no special love for the owl. The owl and the owl are explained in Zhuowenjizi as, owl is an unfilial bird. The Qing dynasty's Dunzai Minlin even believed that the owl eats its mother. Lu Chang'an combined the context of what she wrote with his own knowledge, and finally understood what she meant. This was what the little old lady had been thinking about all day long. Do you think I'm treating you badly, or are you reminding me that I'm going to treat you badly? Lu Chang'an was very dissatisfied. I already treated you to meat buns, and I even gave you shrimp and tofu today. Shang Guandandan looked around, but didn't see anything similar. Even if she saw it, she couldn't tell whether it was what she wanted, because people nowadays don't care about visually reflecting the function of the product when designing the appearance. She didn't answer Lu Chang'an's question, and finally found a place that sold thermal kettles. Through the product name and description, she knew that this was what she wanted. I want this, Shang Guandandan said, pointing to a large, long, and thick thermal kettle hanging on her body like a rocket launcher. Do you need such a big one? I want this. This is for outdoor workers to use around the clock in summer. I want this. Lu Chang'an took it off the shelf and handed it to Shang Guandandan, who was on tiptoe. He found that there was not much difference between communicating with Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong. They always talked to themselves and thought they were self-righteous and didn't care what he was saying. Shang Guandandan asked Lu Chang'an to wipe the kettle, and then held it in his hands with difficulty. Lu Chang'an brought the cart over. She held the kettle and wanted to climb into the cart, but Lu Chang'an stopped her. According to Shang Guandandan's list, he could buy almost everything he could buy, or something similar. After paying the bill, Lu Chang'an took 2 bottles of orange juice and sat with Shang Guandandan at the dining area at the exit of the supermarket to drink. Shang Guandandan looked at the bottle and handed the orange juice to Lu Chang'an to open. The two of them drank orange juice quietly, and 3 girls in Hanfu came out, one in Wei and Jin style, one in Ming style, and one in a chest-length undershirt. The 3 girls all looked at Shang Guandandan. It was rare to find a girl who was 14 or 15 years old and went out wearing hanfu. What's more, her temperament made people feel ashamed. Most of the girls wearing hanfu I see on the street are not as beautiful as the photos posted on social media. They look more like passers-by on the bustling street in costume dramas who take a shot behind the protagonist. Had he not been wearing a hanfu, he would not have received more than 1 or 2 glances. The girl in front of me reminds me of a flower blooming on the top of a majestic mountaintop in the dim light of morning. No other flower dared to bloom beside it. It was bathed in the golden Sunday. The light, facing the cool morning breeze, did not tremble at all. It was delicate yet so upright and elegant. Little sister, where did your dark clothes come from? The girl wearing Ming Dynasty hanfu was pushed by the other 2 people and walked over with a smile to strike up a conversation. In the hanfu circle, there are many disputes about the shape of hanfu. A slightly more experienced hanfu girl will know the scientific names of various styles of hanfu. Shinai is actually the most down-to-earth style of hanfu. It can be worn by both men and women. It can be worn by both the noble and the humble. It is worn during weddings and funerals. It is considered an anomaly. Shang Guandandan raised his head and glanced at the girl who asked the question, indicating that he heard it, but had no intention of answering. He continued to drink orange juice with his head down. These people are too rude. Didn't they see that I was drinking? Why should I talk to you? Weaving room of the Sheofu of Vyang Palace. Lu Chang'an didn't care about Shang Guandandan's rules and replied with a smile. Thanks. The three girls left in a hurry, because no one wanted to stay longer in front of someone who made them look mediocre or even like Dong Shixiao. After they walked out, they searched and found that the boy with a gentle smile and proactive answer was actually more hateful than the ignored girl, because they searched for Vyang Palace Sheofu weaving room, which was not Hanfu at all. The merchant, but the government office responsible for making clothes for the royal family in the Western Han Dynasty, was located in Vyang Palace. But this is not important, they are just curious. Even if the hairpin in the girl's hair is a product of an online merchant, it uses so many materials and is gold-plated. It costs at least 3,000 to 5,000. If it uses gems and precious metals, it will cost even more. The price is astronomical, and the dark clothes and the price of the hairpin are probably at least several thousand. Most people can't afford it, so just look at it. After drinking the orange juice, Lu Chang'an carried the shopping bag, and Shang Guandandan left the supermarket holding the thermos bottle. Just now, the three girls came to inquire about clothes and reminded Lu Chang'an, "Do you want to buy you some daily clothes? Do you want me to dress like an ordinary girl instead of your mother?" Shang Guandandan asked. "You never look like my mother." Lu Chang'an hoped that she could sincerely realize this. Shang Guandandan thought for a while and realized that Lu Chang'an's intention was to buy some clothes that would make her look less like his mother. Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan left Bailong Center and went shopping at the flagship store of the international cutting-edge fashion brand Yushun on the pedestrian street. The store is several stories high, and each floor has hundreds of square meters of shopping area. You can buy many items at once. The style is very suitable for her identity. Lu Chang'an let her choose as she pleased, and called Qin Yinan to ask if she was free to come and accompany Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan doesn't think that modern fashion design is fancy clothes. Apart from not understanding the sizes, he always chooses clothes that are particularly grown up to try on. On the surface, they look no different from ordinary girls when shopping. After Yushun finished buying Shang Guandandan's clothes, he passed by another brand and saw a set of parent-child clothes on display in the cupboard. Lu Chang'an did not hesitate to pull Shang Guandandan away, who stopped and glanced at him. Qin Yinan was selecting flowers at a nearby flower shop. Before she could make any selections, she received a call from Lu Chang'an and came over. Although he was a little angry because he ignored Zhou Yan when he called him that night, Qin Yinan still rushed over quickly out of habit. She knew that that day he refused to say whether he would accompany An Nuan at night or something like that. It was not the kind of ambiguity and hesitation when two people were in two different situations. He just took care of his An Nuan and was afraid that Qin Yinan would mess with An Nuan. Just angry. Really, don't you have any sense of proportion? She is not a stupid woman like Sunangziu. Qin Yinan came to the place where Lu Chang'an was talking about, and saw Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan standing there from a distance. Lu Chang'an was like a big tree growing on the grassland as always, embellishing the silent and dull scenery with many artistic conceptions. And at this moment, there is Shang Guandandan around, but the loneliness of a single tree growing in the wilderness is missing, as if under the lush canopy, next to the tall and upright tree trunk, an elegant and pure small white flower grows. Just like a sunflower facing the sun, it raises its buds and stares straight at the tree. But why is Shang Guandandan holding such a big thermos bottle like a rocket launcher? The design of this thermos pot exudes the revolutionary atmosphere of the old era, with a military green body and a large five-pointed star on the lid. Qin Yinan thinks that although it is too big, Shang Guandandan's taste is still acceptable. When the daughter-in-law came, Shang Guandandan saw Qin Yinan first and nodded. Only today did he notice that this daughter-in-law looked more fertile than the other daughter-in-law, who looked like a ferocious little hen that had just laid eggs. "Do brother a favor," Lu Chang'an said to Qin Yinan. At the same time, he glanced at Shang Guandandan and emphasized the word brother, but it may not be useful, because he had already discovered that Shang Guandandan wanted to hear what she wanted to hear. It's like she can directly filter out people whose ideas don't agree with hers. Every man in the world looks like a man. When someone helps him, his mouth becomes sweet. Qin Yinan glanced at Lu Chang'an angrily. Of course, the main reason was when he called himself brother. Like gentleness. Take her to buy underwear. I don't know much about this, Lu Chang'an said modestly. Qin Yinan is very doubtful that you, a great tailor who can make cheongsam for an nuan, don't know much about this aspect? I'm afraid that with just one glance and a circle of arms, I can accurately guess someone's measurements. Okay, I'll take her back later. Qin Yinan actually had something else to tell him. I'll go to the restaurant for a walk. Lu Chang'an nodded. Is Zhou Dongdong also in the restaurant? I came over there and saw a round child running past. I don't know if it was her. It should be, the others are not in this shape. Let's go, see you later. See you. Qin Yinan held Shang Guandandan's hand. She did not feel like she was pretending to be familiar with a stranger. Instead, she had a natural feeling of closeness. The reason was probably related to what Lu Chang'an said about Ye Sujin being rescued and reborn by Shang Guandandan. Qin Yinan looked at Shang Guandandan and couldn't help showing a gentle smile. Shang Guandandan didn't feel sweat from Qin Yinan's palms, so he didn't reject her. He raised his head and glanced at Qin Yinan, whose eyes were as gentle as twinkling stars. Smiling, I thought that if I really want to choose a daughter-in-law, this one is better. It has nothing to do with Qin Yinan's good childbirth. Shang Guandandan has already guessed some secrets close to the truth. After all, there were so many maids in Vyang Palace back then, and one left. There are none in Ha Long. Being alone with Shang Guandandan, Qin Yinan suddenly confirmed one thing. She and Shang Guandandan were almost natural allies. Supporting Shang Guandandan's assertion of mother-son relationship with Lu Chang'an is equivalent to gaining more solid foundation for her identity as a younger sister. After all, how many of his girlfriends, lovers, wives, etc. are dead? There must be a lot of them alive, but he knows less. But the ones he calls mother and sister are still alive. Shang Guandandan and Qin Yinan are just separated. For an immortal like Lu Chang'an, blood relationship is meaningless. On the contrary, the relationship he recognizes is more stable than blood relationship. Because his life is too long, his feelings will not fade too quickly. Family affection is completely different from love. Take Sunangxiu as an example. Although Sunangxiu committed suicide first, Lu Chang'an's current attitude after they separated from her really didn't give Sunangxiu any chance. In Nuan, Qin Yinan didn't believe that Lu Chang'an could still be in love with her for decades or hundreds of years. A relationship based on beauty and body would eventually get bored easily. Holding her hand is like the left hand holding the right hand. The passion will subside sooner or later. Lu Chang'an may change his identity again and break with his previous social relationship, but he has no reason to abandon Qin Yinan and Shang Guandandan. Just like he never forgot Qin Peng from Yechinayu to Lu Chang'an. Probably for real immortals, friendship and companionship are more important emotions. I recommend a book called The Black Technology System of Academic Masters. The book is a popular book. The main point is that the author's women's clothing is really beautiful. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 466. Qin Yinan accompanied Shang Guandandan to buy underwear. The clothes Lu Chang'an is holding are the ones he bought for you just now. Qin Yinan just watched Lu Chang'an leave with several shopping bags. The quantity is a lot, but the quality. Qin Yinan definitely does not mean to discriminate against ordinary affordable brands, but it is natural to choose higher quality clothes if you have the ability. not to mention that for girls, clothes are especially important. Face is as important to girls as bags and diamond rings. Shang Guandandan nodded lightly. Qin Yinan discovered that these very confident people preferred to nod rather than reply. And when I nod, I am very classy. There is always a lot of meaning in my nodding. You can understand it yourself. I don't want to talk about the unnecessary things. If I have time later, I'll buy you some more. Lu Chang'an didn't take the Queen Mother seriously, but Qin Yinan didn't have his equal mentality. Her pampered status was almost unmatched by anyone in the world, even if she lived in a complex. In the room of things, there was also a phoenix with noble blood. What's more, this is his ally, and he can suppress that crazy woman Sunangxiu, so he must be kind to her. He said that what he bought me was a world brand, which means that after the Silk Road is opened, I will sell silk and silk fabrics to the western regions, Qin, Kishan, Persia, and other places. Shang Guan calmly narrated, without any objection, although I don't believe it at all. Many modern crafts have far surpassed the ancient production level after applying the achievements of modern science and technology. However, as the most noble Queen Mother of the Han Empire, all her clothes are made by the most skillful craftsmen. Their level of sophistication and craftsmanship are beyond belief. It is not comparable to the world brand Lu Chang'an calls it. He just likes to talk nonsense. Qin Yinan felt embarrassed for her brother. How could he fool a young girl like this? Basically, he felt the same way he felt about Zhou Dongdong. Qin Yinan took Shang Guandandan to Bailong Center. Since she was responsible for Shang Guandandan's underwear, of course she had to buy better ones, and she could also buy some new ones. Clothing. Qin Yinan is actually not very familiar with underwear brands in shopping malls, because her cup size can rarely be found in the counters of mass-produced brands in the right size and the style she likes. Qin Yinan sent a message to ask Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang recommended a brand that girls love, and told Qin Yinan that he was in Zhonghai now and had some breaking news to tell Qin Yinan when he came back. Qin Yinan didn't ask what the breaking news Zhu Huntang said was. She remembered that one time the breaking news Zhu Huntang said was that her cat was having sex. She used the app to translate the cat's meows and generated a pornographic article. When he came to the store, Shang Guandandan looked at the various underwear with some curiosity. It was different from buying a jacket in Yushan. Only now did Shang Guandandan feel the impact. The tattoo on his chest was completely different from the underwear he was wearing. Different style now. They were all one piece in the Han Dynasty, right? Modern tattooed breasts can generally be gathered together to make girls look plumper. Qin Yinan introduced in a low voice while looking at Shangguan's wandering eyes. Shang Guandandan nodded, and then pointed at a tattooed chest with a pattern of plain white petals and light yellow stamens. Qin Yinan estimated Shang Guandandan's bra cup, took one over, and took Shang Guandandan to the dressing room. Shang Guandandan asked her to accompany her. Shang Guandandan tried it and was surprised and satisfied. This thing had magical power, making the growing girl's bust suddenly expand. Shang Guandandan looked at himself in the mirror, his cheeks turned slightly red, and then he took a look at Qin Yinan's bust. Qin Yinan raised her hand in embarrassment. He especially likes wet nurses like you. When he was in Viang Palace, he was always blessed with wet nurses like you. He likes to lie on those wet nurses with messy clothes, using his body as a quilt and his breasts as a pillow. Shang Guandandan recalled some things, some of which she witnessed with her own eyes, and some of which were reported by her own informants, so she restrained her indifference and dignity of the Queen Mother, and showed some shameful resentment. Shang Guandandan kept saying "nanny like you," which made Qin Yinan a little bit unbearable, but what shocked her even more was the revelation from Shang Guandandan that sometimes she would hold his arm, and he would immediately pull it out and follow her. The man who pretended to be pure like the White Lotus Saint was once as debauched as a pond of wine and a forest of meat. This meat is certainly not pork or other animal meat. Qin Yinan imagined the scene. She had no realistic impression of this aspect. She could only think of movies such as Roman Empire XXX and some multi-person scenes in Western oil paintings. The picture of Lu Chang'an as the protagonist suddenly emerged. The nanny he trusts the most is as big as you. Shang Guandandan stretched out his hand and patted her. As if the skin on her chest was being burned, Qin Yinan hurriedly took 2 steps back, her cheeks flushed. Can Shang Guandandan's words not make people think wildly? But why do you like it? Shang Guandandan couldn't understand. I'll know just by touching it. Qin Yinan quickly ran out of the locker room. Qin Yinan took Shang Guandandan to buy underwear and new clothes, and went to the flower shop to choose flowers together. She found that Shang Guandandan had some experience in selecting flowers, and then she remembered that floral art was actually a traditional art, which had developed since the pre-Qin and Han dynasties. This beautiful girl in front of me once occupied the entire royal garden. After Qin Yinan returned from sending Shang Guandandan back, Lu Chang'an had already taken Zhou Dongdong home. The two of them were lying on the sofa with their legs crossed and watching TV. Zhou Shuling listened to the commotion downstairs and came down to take a look. She originally wanted to ask Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong to go up and eat crabs. When they saw the guests, they brought down all the crabs. She also made 3 kinds of dipping sauces, one stewed with vinegar, soy sauce, sugar, and ginger foam, one with crab vinegar, and one with garlic sauce. Qin Yinan originally had something to say to Lu Chang'an, but when he saw that the scene in front of him turned into a room full of people eating enthusiastically, it was not the time to talk. After reluctantly tasting a crab, he said goodbye and left. Leave some for me, Lu Chang'an reminded Zhou Dongdong emphatically, and then said to the others, I'll see Qin Yinan off. Qin Yinan walked down the stairs and felt a little happy when she heard Lu Chang'an's footsteps behind her. If he saw her leaving and raised his hand to say hello, just like an ordinary brother would treat his sister, then she would definitely be very unhappy. You don't want to go back and eat crabs. Look at Zhou Dongdong's round little fingers, how can they be so flexible when peeling crabs? They were all eaten by her. After a while Qin Yinan reminded him that maybe eating is more important than giving her gifts. Things. I want to go back to eat crabs, why don't you show me mercy next time? Lu Chang'an shook his head, you have a good temper now, I can't let you have it, otherwise what will you do if you don't listen to me? Qin Yinan felt a little proud after hearing the first half of the sentence, but the second half of the sentence really made people angry. It turned out that he was thinking about her being easy to control. Qin Yinan rolled her eyes at him angrily, but saw a smile on his face. Suddenly she remembered Shang Guandandan's description, and she really couldn't connect the man in front of her with the ridiculous emperor. The man in front of me was once an emperor. Even though she is still the little princess of the Qin family and does not feel as if she is separated from the core of power by the clouds, the profession of emperor still makes women a little curious. After all, this profession is always in conflict with the 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, and the harem. The labels of concubine, cold palace, palace fight, imperial concubine, empress, and love for the country are more beautiful. It is easy for a woman to use these words to outline a big drama of herself as the heroine. The one in front of her is the emperor. Even if she was once, wouldn't it be easier for people to get into the drama? How does it feel to be an emperor? Qin Yinan held her bag in front of her lower abdomen, feeling a little restrained involuntarily. Shang Guandandan's words, a wet nurse like you, had a big impact on Qin Yinan, and she always wanted to hide the curves on her chest. Upon hearing Qin Yinan's question, Lu Chang'an knew that it was Shang Guandandan who was gossiping in front of her. It's not interesting, but it's interesting at the same time. I just wanted to be a prince at that time, but I didn't expect that I would be pushed to be the emperor for a period of time. I just let nature take its course and did some things that are convenient for being an emperor. Lu Chang'an, I thought about it carefully and laughed. People always have ridiculous memories of their youth that they cannot look back on. As a human being in a civilized society, That time should be regarded as the early stage of his becoming a human being, and it is understandable to act indulgently. What did you do? Qinyan felt a little ashamed, but couldn't help but want to ask. She felt a little irritated. Her cheeks bulged slightly, her lips pursed, her eyes moved, and she lowered her voice. She couldn't help but feel that he should talk about it. Those ridiculous things felt like they would make her more shy and confused than hearing them from Shangguan Dandan. Alchemy. At that time, I actually believed in alchemy. I felt that the alchemists recruited by Emperor Wu could not make alchemy just because they were liars and their materials were not good. The materials they used were all common things in the world, and they were based on the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. These 5 elements things are just common things in the mundane world. How can we extract an extraordinary elixir? Lu Chang'an recalled with some interest. At that time, I used my body as medicine and tried various methods, and finally discovered that any process of refining alchemy and refining demons will damage and destroy the materials. It is better to try to let people absorb it directly. Although it did not go as I expected in the end, the process was still interesting. Using your body as medicine? What materials did you use, and how can people absorb it directly? Qinyan asked curiously. People with normal brains are naturally not interested in the topic of refining elixirs for immortality. At most, they just treat it as anecdotes. However, seeing a real immortal, Qinyan's curiosity is very strong. Just like when he was a child, he read 10,000 Ys is the same. Jingyuan. I only know about the wafer factory. Does using one's body as medicine have something to do with the essence you mentioned? Qinyan made a joke. After my body fluids are absorbed by ordinary people, they can improve their physique, repair diseases, and extend their lifespan. The mysterious element that causes this effect is what I call Jingyuan. Lu Chang'an coughed lightly. As for how to make it happen, people absorb it directly, and the method is nothing more than external application and internal use. Body fluids is a relatively broad concept, and Qinyan still knows it. Which body fluids? Or all body fluids? The body of organic life contains a large amount of water. This water and some substances dispersed in the water are collectively called body fluids. The body fluids of the human body account for 60% of the total weight. Qinyan believed that the body fluid he was talking about was not intracellular fluid, but extracellular fluid included plasma, tissue fluid, lymph fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, aqueous humor and the like. Saliva does not count. Although saliva should actually be regarded as exocrine fluid, it is not a body fluid in the biological definition. Blood also counts. This is a real body fluid, and it contains the most essence, far more than saliva. After my research, in the use of Jingyuan, the Jingyuan rich in saliva can repair the body, keep the appearance youthful, and treat injuries and illnesses. That's all. The Jingyuan in the blood is the most abundant, but its application range is actually smaller. Even if it is diluted many times, most people cannot bear it. Only dying people can try to let them absorb it. It is considered a dead horse and a living horse. Dr. Lu Chang'an stretched out 2 fingers. According to the information I have received so far, I have benefited from it for so many years. There are no more than 10 people who are interested in blood therapy, and one of them is Ziking. It turns out one of them is an old man. Qinyan was very lucky. Qin Pen was seriously injured during the war. However, under the conditions at the time, he could not be transported to a place with better medical conditions for treatment in time. However, Qin Pen miraculously survived. It turned out that he was the one who took action. The essence in the blood is used in few places, but like many high-tech technologies, the research and development costs are extremely high, and the actual scope of application is extremely narrow. However, once it is used, the impact or certain results produced will not be the same. Extremely astonishing. For example, various nuclear weapons, In addition to Ziking, the other person who benefited from blood therapy and survived in the world, she had a mutation. Lu Chang'an thought of the beautiful singer, and wondered if she had found some for Sunangziu. This is also in line with my long-term speculation. Compared with saliva, the effect of my blood is not to treat, but to allow humans to produce mutations. Is this other person Sunangziu? Qinyan suddenly realized that this evil woman changed over and over again. One moment she was Sumei, the next she was the third wife, and the next she was Sunangziu again. It was probably because of a sudden change. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and nodded, that's right. Although it was Mrs. Karnstein who actually absorbed his blood and mutated her, the source of Sunangziu's ability to mutate Mrs. Karnstein was ultimately the mutation caused by his blood. The effects of various tissue fluids are different. Qinyan thought for a while, and suddenly her cheeks turned red. Yes, Lu Chang'an opened his mouth, wondering why she was blushing. The waning moon of the autumn night was not clear, and the lights and dust of the city polluted the night. Qinyan stood under the street lamp fell on his head, and his face was hidden in the shadow. Only then could Lu Chang'an clearly see the shyness in his eyes. Then the body fluid I absorbed, is the key to my rebirth. Qinyan still wanted to remind him that although his sister is a sister, there are some things, what happened happened, and everyone must face it head on and blindly. The taboo is not a scientific attitude. Now everyone is discussing topics related to scientific research with a scientific attitude. What is there to be secretive about? That is not a scientific attitude. For example, in a nursing class at a medical school, if the class is all girls and there is only one living boy, and this boy is used as a living specimen, there is no privacy at all in front of the girls in the class, and all the data is known to them. Isn't this true? Scientific scenario. However, Qinyan only mentioned this matter when he had a scientific discussion with him. Normally, it was better for everyone to stay calm and not pay attention to it. To be specific, it's interstitial fluid. Lu Chang'an casually changed the topic and coughed slightly. I don't know about this. Maybe the key is the miraculous effect of Dandan's coffin, but, if it weren't for these, even Dandan can't find you in the interstitial fluid, so it's not wrong to say it is the key. It's quite interesting. Qinyan raised his hand, pressing a few strands of hair on the back of his hand to cover the corners of his shy mouth. Interesting. Lu Chang'an didn't find it interesting. None of the mice found it interesting to be studied. I've been studying myself for too long, and I get tired of it from time to time. Now I'm interested again, but I think my original intention was to enroll in the biology department because of this, but now it seems that someone else has made greater progress in this area, and maybe they can make breakthrough discoveries. Sunangziu, Qinyan said sensitively. Qinyan's guess was accurate this time, although Lu Chang'an felt that this might not be accomplished by Sunangziu alone. Didn't Mrs. Karnstein say that there was a mysterious person besides Sunangziu? Lu Chang'an would not leave himself to Sunangziu for research. This woman's thoughts are difficult to fathom. Since she can strip away Mrs. Karnstein's mutant ability, if he mindlessly leaves it to her to study, who knows what she will do? Something is coming? She may not kill him, but she might be able to turn him into a loyal dog of hers. Lu Chang'an has his own trump card and doesn't have to worry about Sunangziu, but no one wants to flip the table unless necessary. Speaking of Sunangziu, you two went to the Qin family's old house and stayed there for several days. What did you do? Lu Chang'an and Qinyan chatted beside her car for a long time. In fact, this was what he really wanted to talk to her of. It's nothing more than a script for otaku fights. If you have read some otaku fights, you will know that jealousy between women does not necessarily revolve around the male protagonist as a battlefield. As long as there is a place where they can compete for favorable conditions, it can be a battlefield. So the old house of the Qin family became a battlefield, and the old man became the target of our support. Sunangziu naturally has no advantage in this regard. Qinyan couldn't help but show some pride in victory, although we were all just the old man's cousin, but there is still a close relative. Yes, Sijin and Qin Peng grew up together, they are called cousins, but in fact they are no different from biological siblings. From the bottom of my heart, the old man still cannot accept the unscrupulous and profit-seeking behavior of that evil woman. Lu Chang'an smiled. Qin Peng, a revolutionary, was naturally not in the same boat as Sunangziu, a runaway. In house fights and the like, they usually end up with the hero's lover, girlfriend, wife, etc., right? How can a sister-in-law drag her brother-in-law into the mix? Lu Chang'an naturally has no interest in this kind of literature. I guess it's just those routines and situations. Who stipulates that a sister-in-law can't bring her brother-in-law into the mix? I don't want to mix in. But you, an old lover and an evil bitch, are just going crazy and grabbing me to fight. What can I do, Qin Yinan? He said angrily, am I still afraid of her and want to keep her? I'm not used to her. Either the east wind overwhelms the west wind, or the west wind overwhelms the east wind. Who is afraid of whom? Besides, your baby and Nuan doesn't either. What's going to happen? Sunangziu is so nervous that she doesn't want to find the rightful owner. And Nuan can't fight her. Lu Chang'an shook his head. That's true. And Nuan is showing her teeth and claws in front of me. If Sunangziu really fights An Nuan, I'm afraid that An Nuan will be eaten clean by her like a little sheep. Qin Yinan sneered, thinking of An Nuan's things. An Nuan's behavior was rather dismissive. An Nuan, this little girl was full of scheming. If he hadn't given her the real estate certificate, how would she have had the chance to seriously injure Qin Yinan? Go back and drive carefully on the road. I'm going back to eat crabs. Lu Chang'an pressed his temples. This time when I returned to the Qin family's old house, the old man told me a lot about what happened back then, and he wanted to help me restore Sijin's memory. Qin Yinan stood under the blurred neon lights, her eyes like autumn water, and her fingers moved away the hair hanging in front of her cheeks. Hair, some things, have really become a lot clearer. Her smile was like that of a new daughter-in-law with her hijab lifted in the bridal chamber, shy and angry. The update of 10,000 words has been completed. Please recommend your monthly votes. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 467. When Lu Chang'an returned home, he saw Zhou Dongdong piled crab shells and legs into empty shells and placed them on the dining table. This is my crab army. Zhou Dongdong saw Lu Chang'an coming back and showed off, I am the crab general. What about my crabs? Lu Chang'an said, pointing to the bare plate. The large pile of crabs was eaten up by the two elders and the first one. By the way, he took 2 crab shells, one left and one right, and hung them on Zhou Dong. On the 2 high braids pointing upward, since she is a crab general, let's give her a look. Dandan and Dongdong both like it very much, so I let them all eat it, and I steamed a new portion for you. Zhou Shuling came out of the kitchen with a plate of crabs in her hand. There were more than 10 crabs. Only. Lu Chang'an was very satisfied. This is a real mother who is considerate. He took a look at Shang Guan Dandan, who liked being a mother, but could only eat up all the crabs with Zhou Dongdong. Didn't you just say that you only left 3 for him? Shang Guan Dandan looked at Zhou Shuling in confusion. I was afraid that you would still want to eat it, so I said that on purpose. Zhou Shuling explained with some embarrassment, crabs are cold in nature. Girls should not eat too much, as they may cause stomachaches. Shang Guan Dandan hugged his bazooka thermos and sat on the sofa to watch TV. The TV upstairs was much better than the small box-like TV in the utility room. Zhou Shuling sat across from the dining table, watching Zhou Dongdong playing with crab shells and Lu Chang'an peeling crabs to eat. She rested her elbows on the table with a gentle smile on her face, telling Lu Chang'an about bits and pieces of the restaurant. Zhou Dongdong ran to Shang Guan Dandan carrying 2 crab shells and asked Shang Guan Dandan if he wanted to be a crab general, but Shang Guan Dandan majestically refused. Lu Chang'an doesn't use any tools to eat crabs. In previous years, when the green train was moving slowly, people would often get on the train with a few crabs and a set of crab-eating tools. They would eat them all the way until the crabs were finished. A few hours' drive passed. Zhang Taiyan's wife Tang Quilai said, if it weren't for Yangcheng Lake crabs, there would be no need to live in Suzhou. Nowadays, logistics is very fast, and most places where online shopping can be shipped, you can eat crabs from Yangcheng Lake. There is no need to live in Suzhou for crabs. Of course, Suzhou is also a good place, good for eating, living and doing business. Michael came to the restaurant today to see me, and I happened to meet the all-stars. It was quite embarrassing. Zhou Shuling encountered a problem and habitually consulted Lu Chang'an for his opinion. Mi Jiaoming is your old classmate who I met when we went to the buffet. Lu Chang'an nodded and peeled off a crab. When he saw that the crab was full of roe, he handed it to Zhou Shuling and picked up the other one to peel it. He looks like a normal successful man, or he is on the road to success. She is very stable. How do you describe her? Zhou Shuling couldn't help but laugh. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong didn't use these messy adjectives when talking, so Zhou Dongdong wouldn't be led astray, but it doesn't matter, he used them randomly. Zhou Dongdong didn't quite understand how to use it correctly. But, what's the embarrassment? Did Mi Jiaoming ask you out? Lu Chang'an looked at the stupid mother in front of him. In his eyes, the little woman who was a little worried about her not being able to marry was actually quite popular. No, we're all old classmates, why is he embarrassed to ask me out? Zhou Shuling shook her head in disbelief. I guess Mi Jiaoming thought the same way, right? Zhou Shuling continued, Mi Jiaoming wants to discuss cooperation with us. Their company is responsible for brand promotion and turning our Red Soup Spicy Rooster Noodle shop into a chain franchise brand. Lu Chang'an didn't say anything. He rolled his tongue in the crab shell and scraped the crab roe and meat into his mouth. He slowly tasted the mixed taste. He glanced at Zhou Shuling and nodded. Zhou Shuling already has a tacit understanding of conversation with Lu Chang'an. This person's nod does not necessarily mean agreement, but there is always a sense that my nodding means a lot of meaning. You can understand it yourself, and I don't want to say more. So Zhou Shuling continued, it seems like a good thing, but I'm a little reluctant. As for why I'm reluctant, I can't tell myself. It's not that Zhou Shuling can't explain it clearly, but she's embarrassed to say it. She always feels that if the restaurant becomes bigger, like a chain restaurant, the feeling will change, but she can't explain exactly what the feeling changes. Lu Chang'an must think that his idea is stupid, but Zhou Shuling still doesn't like outsiders to interfere. Starbucks knows, right? Zhou Shuling nodded and quickly sat upright to listen to him. Except for certain circumstances, Starbucks will have franchise stores. Most Starbucks stores are directly operated. The reason is that they do not trust franchisees to strictly abide by regulations, quality, corporate culture, and implement promotional activities, etc. Lu Chang'an took a sip of tea and continued said, Junche's local chayan USE has not opened up franchises from other places. This is also a consideration. You don't agree to join the franchise either, Zhou Shuling breathed a sigh of relief. The first point is that our reputation has not yet reached the point where it has completely become popular. There is still a big gap between our foundation and those companies that have established their own brands. Now is not the time. Second point, Michael is definitely going to be famous. For those who are doing business, if we want to expand in the shortest time and develop the number of stores, we must hype the brand. Our restaurants will become the protagonists of various marketing hype events. Nowadays, the marketing ideas are basically to use internet celebrity stores. The route of speculating on traffic goes against our original intention. Lu Chang'an smiled, I told you at the beginning, what do we rely on to gain a foothold? High quality brings word-of-mouth reputation, and it must become a word-of-mouth brand, Zhou Shuling said immediately. Although she is not a very smart woman, she knows how to listen and memorize it, and then implement it seriously. We don't need a franchise store. If you think the time is right in the future, we will open a second store ourselves. Good. But I think the point is, since Michael is here to discuss cooperation, why are you embarrassed when you meet the All-Stars? Lu Chang'an rarely gossips, but this is a question involving the happiness of stupid children, so he still has to ask. The All-Stars misunderstood that Michael was pursuing me, and the two of them had a little quarrel, Zhou Shuling said with a sigh. Sometimes you can't be soft-hearted. Always caring about other people's faces and feelings will make things even more uncontrollable in the end. If you refuse, you must refuse firmly and without mercy. Lu Chang'an also looked annoyed. Why is this matter between a man and a woman so complicated? Not sure? Didn't I want to offend the all-star in the mall after all? What should I do if he gives me little shoes to wear? Zhou Shuling said a little aggrievedly, and his tone seemed to be her fault. He shouldn't be such a person. Lu Chang'an paused. If he wants to cause trouble for you, I will tear Zhe Huntang's skirt off. Zhou Shuling said angrily, really, my third lady is such a good person. You can intercede with her, but you also tear her skirt off. How can you do that? What do you know? This thing about ripping off the skirt is really confusing. If you don't understand, I won't explain. I don't believe it, you're talking nonsense. Lu Chang'an ignored her and continued to eat crabs seriously. Zhou Shuling watched him eat crabs. Why do I always feel that your tongue is sometimes long, sometimes short, sometimes thick, and sometimes thin? Zhou Shuling asked doubtfully. Women sometimes observe strange things. In this way, the tongue can be more adapted to various occasions and functions. Lu Chang'an thought of Zhu Munyao's tongue again and talked to Zhou Shuling. It was interesting to see that her expression was exactly the same as Zhou Dongdong's many times when he was surprised. Lu Chang'an finished eating crabs and went to watch TV. Zhou Shuling was cleaning up in the kitchen. Shang Guan came in and looked at Zhou Shuling's chest. Is something wrong? Zhou Shuling asked. Have you ever fed a child? Of course, Zhou Shuling nodded. Do you need to use your tongue to breastfeed? Ah. Do you need to use your tongue to breastfeed? Don't use it. Why do you ask? Zhou Shuling looked at the little girl in front of her with a little embarrassment. I won't tell you. Shang Guan walked away calmly. Zhou Shuling is baffled, but it is understandable. Little girls are always very curious about how to become adults or mothers. Sometimes they think they are mothers wearing high heels and lipstick. I really want to die. I had gallstones today and I have been feeling uncomfortable all day. I am feeling a little better now. I will write a 10,000-word chapter tomorrow to make up for what I should have missed today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 468. Shang Guan Dandan found Zhou Dongdong, who had obtained more crab shells and was preparing to form a second crab army. Zhou Dongdong raised his head and glanced at Sister Egg, holding a crab shell and looking at her expectantly. Shang Guan Dandan didn't want to be a general, so he still shook his head and refused. Shang Guan Dandan continued to ask. Zhou Dongdong heard it this time and thought for a moment, I'm not a kid who needs to be fed. I've grown up. I'm just asking. Shang Guan Dandan was very patient. Zhou Dongdong, like Lu Chang'an, was really difficult to communicate. He always either didn't answer or gave answers that had nothing to do with the question. What are you asking? Shang Guan Dandan repeated the question. Sister Egg, why are you asking this question? Zhou Dongdong asked curiously, do you have a baby? Was it Brother Chang'an who gave birth to you? Shang Guan Dandan shyly whispered that this was not a secret because he had already discussed this issue with Zhou Dongdong. Zhou Dongdong figured it out, but Brother Chang'an is now an adult. He can eat 3 bowls of rice just like Zhou Dongdong. He is a very powerful adult. There are very powerful people here, such as brother Chang'an and sister Dandan, who are as good at eating as Zhou Dongdong. Although my mother doesn't eat much at the table, if there are any leftover dishes or food, she will eat them all. She is also a very powerful adult. For example, the kindergarten teacher in the past was not very good at all. Every time he ate as little as other children, he asked Zhou Dongdong to help him eat, otherwise he would not be able to finish it. Shangguan Dandan walked away with his cheeks flushed. The man was really strange. Zhou Dongdong knew that only babies were like that. Lu Chang'an was still sitting in front of the TV and watching the program attentively. The TV was showing a documentary about Rasputin. It was said to be a documentary, but in fact it was mainly based on gossip. After all, the rightful owner had passed away for a long time, and few people paid attention to the truth. Their interest is only in either mythologizing him or demonizing him. The producers responsible for providing content also understand the psychology of the audience. The facts are not important, the ratings and topic traffic are the most important. I saw Rasputin's profile photo being played on the TV, and it flashed by in a blur, and the program ended. As soon as you hear the name, you will know that Rasputin is a Russian. He was born in the 1860s and died in the early 20th century. This man was said to be able to cure hemophilia, and thus he was able to control the Tsar and Empress whose sons had hemophilia. He also possessing the power of prophecy. The most gossip-worthy thing is that because of his super-masculine ability and power, this man is said to have had relationships with many aristocratic women of Tsarist Russia, including the Empress. Historically, those who cheated others with too many cuckolds rarely ended well, and Rasputin was no exception. In the end, he was murdered by the beautiful Prince Yusupov. It is said that Rasputin was poisoned with potassium chloride. He was shot by Prince Yusupov. When everyone was dead, he got up and broke away from everyone, and was shot 3 times, including a bullet in the head. Rasputin was still not dead. Yusupov even hit Rasputin's temple multiple times with a dumbbell, but it only made him unconscious again. Finally, Rasputin was thrown into an ice cellar in the river. When he woke up, the river was covered with thick ice, and he drowned in the water. His body was burned. It is said that he sat up while burning, glared at the people around him, and shouted, "Remember my name, I will come back." Rasputin was not a grey wolf. His words "I will come back" frightened many dignitaries who participated in his murder. As of now, no one knows whether Rasputin has come back. After all, Russia has experienced a special era, and many events may not be spread. Lu Chang'an was somewhat interested in Rasputin and decided to look for relevant information. This was a troublesome thing. It was not just about opening a search bar and typing in Rasputin's name. Basically, he was looking for any real and reliable information. Less than. But once we have determined that era, we can look for clues in the text and video materials of that era. The characters involved, the biographies of contemporaries, and even novels all have the value of uncovering clues. What he wanted to know was whether these rumors about Rasputin were just rumors, or whether there were some real events to test. This has always been his habit. When he sees some strange people and things, if he feels that there is even the slightest hint that they may be true, he will want to investigate. It was like he had investigated zombies before, because Li Daoran kept saying that he had seen real zombies. Lu Chang'an was able to be fooled, which is enough to show Li Daoran's ability. His descendant Li Hongfang is far behind her ancestors in this regard. Lu Chang'an didn't care that Li Hongfang was ordered by Sunangxiu to spy on him in Jiajiazhuang, the farmhouse of Gao Dui's family. It was also called Jiajiazhuang for short. He contacted Li Hongfang and asked her if she knew any Russians and asked her about it. Putin's story. A worker in the underground archaeology community like Li Hongfang must have a wide network of contacts in the underground world, Otherwise it will be difficult for her to ship goods and she will easily be hacked. However, Russians have always been very active in the underground archaeology community. This is no longer the case in the past few decades. Years matter. In fact, on the whole, the entire industrial chain of the Western underground archaeology industry is more complete, and there are more information materials that are not found in official history and official information. Just like she also found out about MRS Xianzui from the original staff of MRS Karnstein, the source of the series of things about the living coffin was also the foreigners she came into contact with. Li Hongfang agreed. She was still a little afraid of Lu Chang'an, and she couldn't figure out the relationship between the more terrifying Sunangxiu and Lu Chang'an. Perhaps it was just like most mysterious people in history who were mythologized or demonized. Lu Chang'an did not place any hope that Li Hongfang would be able to give him shocking news. It is a myth, not a deification. There is a difference. Zhou Shuling tidied up the kitchen and said that tomorrow morning she would eat hairy crab soaked in salt water with crab roe noodles, so she took the sleepy crab general upstairs to sleep. She also warned Shang Guandandan that it was the time for growth and development. Also go to bed early. Can you still grow and develop? Lu Chang'an was still concerned about many issues related to Shang Guandandan's physical condition. Shang Guandandan looked down at his chest, blushed, and took 2 steps back. His voice involuntarily raised. The girl's voice was a bit sharp after all, but it could not hide the majestic aura. You are disgusting. What? Besides, I am your mother. Lu Chang'an took a deep breath. After calming down, Lu Chang'an pointed outside the balcony and said, "Go back to sleep." "I can sleep whenever I want." Shang Guandandan walked around the living room disobediently. Lu Chang'an walked over and hugged Shang Guandandan. Shang Guan danced and struggled, but Lu Chang'an lifted his arm from the balcony and put him down. Shang Guandandan glared at Lu Chang'an, who was standing on the balcony. "My owl. Don't try to imply that I'm an unfilial son. It's useless. That one of yours is a thermos pot, and it's completely different from the owl." Lu Chang'an went back and took the thermos pot that she placed on the sofa and threw it into her hand. Shang Guandandan raised his hands high and caught it nervously. He glared at Lu Chang'an one last time, slowly moved to the door of the utility room, opened the narrow door gap and squeezed in, then immediately closed the door. Lu Chang'an went back and took a look at the clothes next to the sofa. He would give them to her tomorrow. He didn't know how she would feel wearing these clothes. It seems that Qin Yanan also bought some new clothes for Shang Guandandan, which is very good. The night was deep. Lu Chang'an picked up a history book and started flipping through it. There were countless waves in the long river of history. No matter how many history books there are, they often only record the most gorgeous flowers. There are too many details and stories behind them that no one knows. It was learned that Lu Chang'an knew more than the average person, but it didn't mean much, because the extra information was often just memories and stories. After all, he had no interest in becoming a recorder and actively telling later people what had happened. What misunderstandings they have about history. He was not familiar with St. Petersburg at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, but he could inquire about the historical background through a lot of information. The Pacific port seized from the declining dynasty in the Far East had connected St. Petersburg through the Trans-Siberian Railway. The Tsar countless civilians were trampled to death during the coronation ceremony, but this did not affect the emperor and queen's interest in attending the French ball. At the same time, the Imperial Navy was retreating steadily under the attack of the Japanese Navy. However, these battles were too far away, and the battlefield was also buffered by the land of another declining dynasty. This did not seem to affect the mood of the big shots in St. Petersburg enjoying the aristocratic life. The Navy will lose the fleet, but gain the beautiful ballerina. Nicholas II's loss of the Baltic fleet did not affect his mood. Hunting was obviously something that attracted more attention to him. After looking at the weather, he left behind the nobles and ministers who were paying attention to the war in the Far East and headed to the forest where wild beasts are fertile. Songhai shows off his hunting prowess. No one can cross Siberia and attack St. Petersburg. This is the greatest confidence of the emperor and his loyal ministers and the geographical conditions that do not care about the defeat in the Far East battlefield. They are too far apart and cannot feel much threat. The level of decay of the Romanov dynasty at this time was no less than that of the declining dynasties in the Far East. This was also a blue world. In the end, there were always new buds growing up in this decay. This was true in the East and so in the West. Who can finally make their nation regain its former glory? Not many people at this time can make predictions. It was at this time that Rasputin could call the shots, and it happened that Yechanai also became the eldest young master of the Ye family at this time, returning to this ancient land to witness the new life. Some people say that Rasputin was the fuse for the collapse of the Romanov dynasty. Although Yechanai was not the fuse, he was obviously on the side chosen by history and the people. In fact, it was also his own choice. He was shocked by the confidence and determination that countless people could not understand. Just like an AIDS patient who has completely lost his immunity, his whole body is rotten and pus leaking. At this time, a few fresh cells suddenly said, "We can save him, we have to find other cells that have not rotted, make this body healthy, let him stand up, make him strong." Some cells rebelled, and decay is always an easier task. Some cells died one after another, but they succeeded in the end. This is the greatest rescue in human history, unparalleled. How many years from now will history comment like this? Lu Chang'an hopes to see such praise when he reads history books in the future. Late at night, Lu Chang'an's thoughts ranged from Rasputin to the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. This is also a common habit of thinking and reminiscing among people who have experienced too much. After all, the memories of ordinary people generally last only a few decades. Memories that span 100 years are just a piece of the past that is still fresh in the memory of the immortals. Lu Chang'an stretched. This action made him stretch his body and make his whole body more upright. He stood on the balcony and looked at the sycamore tree in front of him in silence for a while, then went back to his room to sleep. When I got up in the morning, I walked to the balcony to breathe in the morning air. I saw Zhou Dongdong digging under the tree early in the morning. He also carried a bucket of crabs next to him. Lucien squatted beside him and watched. He stretched out his claws to tentatively touch the large claws raised by the seemingly very ferocious creature, then let out a curious and injured roar, and hurriedly retreated far away. Lu Chang'an understood at a glance that Zhou Dongdong must have wanted to dig a pit to raise crabs. He brought down the crabs that her mother had bought for making salt-water-soaked hairy crabs and crab roe noodles today. After a while, she could hear Zhou Shuling beating her. The sound of wailing is really pleasant to hear. Lu Chang'an took Lu Sin to the vegetable market to buy some meat bones and feed them to the dogs. Unfortunately, Zhou Dongdong hadn't killed the crabs yet. Zhou Shuling was not particularly angry. She just scolded Zhou Dongdong, so Zhou Dongdong didn't do it either. Crying. In the morning, the salt-water-soaked hairy crabs and crab roe noodles tasted quite good because of the delicious ingredients. The salt-water-soaked hairy crabs are simple to make, and the crab roe noodles are not difficult. After steaming the hairy crabs, carefully peel off the crab meat and roe. Pour some oil into the pot and heat it up, then stir-fry the crab roe into the oil to make a topping. The color is golden with a hint of red, and the taste is extremely delicious. Crab roe accompaniments can be compared to the various accompaniments of high-quality caviar, but for the traditional taste of most Chinese people, crab roe products are more suitable, not to mention that even good crab roe tastes better than other products in the product line. Higher grade caviar is much cheaper. This is the most extravagant meal Lu Chang'an has eaten this year. Lu Chang'an plans to buy some more crabs to make drunken crabs. Many people don't like to eat this food, but many people like to eat it. Lu Chang'an still has some experience. The key is to get rid of the fishy smell. Good. Shang Guandandan was still holding her thermos while eating breakfast. Lu Chang'an thought she was just holding it for fun. Unexpectedly, during breakfast, she actually poured out hot drinks and distributed them to everyone. They were made with effervescent tablets. Lu Chang'an had no way of knowing where he got the effervescent tablets. He did not buy the effervescent tablets and put them in the utility room downstairs. After breakfast, Zhou Dongdong and Lu Xin went to school. Lu Chang'an was also preparing to leave. Shang Guandandan followed him to the gate of the community with a thermos bottle in his arms. I will also walk to the foot of the mountain over there in the future. Shang Guandandan knew that Lu Chang'an's school was at the foot of Lushan Mountain. You should leave the community now. Lu Chang'an stood outside the community and said to Shang Guandandan, who was holding onto the wall and looking out. If I go out, you won't send me back. Shang Guandandan hesitated for a moment. Of course she could follow Lu Chang'an out now, but Lu Chang'an would leave by himself later, leaving her to walk back alone. Then test it slowly. Lu Chang'an nodded. Many small animals are like this. They only dare to wander around their familiar territory and slowly expand the scope of their activities. Shang Guandandan had already wandered around the area with Lu Chang'an, but she didn't want to come out alone. Shang Guandandan turned around and walked back. Lu Chang'an watched her walk under the grapevine trellis, and actually stood there watching a few old men and ladies who had gotten up early playing cards. Lu Chang'an then walked to school. During this period, the societies participating in the 100 Regiments War were extremely active in recruiting new members. Some societies would limit the number of societies that applicants could participate in. Some societies did not have regulations in this regard. For example, the Chess Academy had no restrictions, so Lu Chang'an also today I'll see if there are any other interested clubs I can join. No. When he was about to go back to the dormitory to get something, he saw Lu Yuwang and Qin Yan'an laughing and chatting together. Why are these two people together? He was stunned for a moment. Lu Yuwang and Qin Yan'an had already seen him and both smiled. Lu Yuwang was asking Qin Yan'an about buying a rice cooker at a low price. Last time, Qin Yan'an spent 5,000 yuan to buy Lu Chang'an a rice cooker with a market price of at least 7,000 yuan, which left Lu Yuwang's memory fresh. Of course, what is even more fresh in my memory is that my daughter came home and complained about how she would be angry for a long time, only to end up getting stuck with Lu Chang'an again the next day. When Lu Yuwang turned around, she saw a hint of shyness in Qin Yan'an's eyes. The girl was in a daze. She couldn't help but be a little confused. You are already 25 years old. If you round up, you are 30 years old. At this moment, you were shy and immediately restrained your eyebrows. What is the gesture of standing while shaking hands? Professor Lu, Teacher Qin, why are you together? Lu Chang'an asked casually. Aren't all the major clubs and associations recruiting new members now? I am the instructor of the school's women's association. But I am also a little too busy. I also responded to this problem last semester. This semester, I have added an instructor. The association, the person who nominated was Teacher Qin, and Teacher Qin also agreed. Lu Yuwang explained, without thinking more about the meaning of Qin Yan'an's expression. He just thought about it. If his jealous daughter was here, she might be able to figure it out. A big drama is coming. Women's association, it seems that I have no chance to join and accept the guidance of the two teachers, Lu Chang'an said with great regret. You said the opposite. You can only accept the most guidance. Qin Yan'an's shyness just now was just a dream, reflecting some recent memory fragments that should belong to Yesijin, making her feel a little ashamed when she saw Lu Chang'an. That's all. It's relatively easy to adjust in front of outsiders. What kind of guidance do you want to receive? Lu Yuwang looked at Lu Chang'an with a smile. A great talent like you, apart from my own major, I really don't dare to guide you in other aspects. A great talent. Although I knew that Lu Chang'an must be versatile, this was the first time I heard someone praise Lu Chang'an like this. Lu Chang'an seemed to show more extraordinary ability than talent in front of Qin Yinan. Young sister, in order to win the heart and please the future mother-in-law, I don't know how many talents he has performed in front of others. Qin Yinan rolled his eyes at Lu Chang'an. You don't know about your cousin. Lu Yuwang looked a little doubtful and showed off. The first thing that surprised me is that he can make clothes, and he makes cheongsam. No matter in terms of design or workmanship, no less than Wang Saimei who explained it. The words and the paintings are nothing to mention. Recently I found out that he is also good at massage and physical therapy. Isn't this considered versatile? Has he given you a massage? Qin Yinan couldn't help but blurt out. She had every reason to suspect that such a thing had happened. Lu Yuwang in front of her was as charming as a young woman in her early 20s, and her features and figure were also a nuanced type, just right. It's the look he likes, and her breasts are better than a nuance. No, Lu Yuwang glanced at Qin Yinan angrily. Although massage is a normal thing, you suddenly thought of the future son-in-law giving a massage to the future mother-in-law. Why does it sound so ambiguous? Really can't speak. Why don't you press it on him? Qin Yinan showed a normal look and said calmly, he also pressed it on me. Except for the pain at first, he felt comfortable later and felt a little addictive. This is good. I haven't had him massage me for a long time, and I'm still thinking about it. Last night, I dreamed about him massaging me. I was thinking that I've been feeling a little angry recently, and there's something wrong with everything in my body. When can I give it to you again? Shall I click it? Qin Yinan chatted in a casual manner, with a slightly nagging and complaining tone, no different from an ordinary older sister who dislikes her and wants to boss her younger brother around. Okay, you can do it anytime in front of Lu Yuwang. Lu Chang'an couldn't say anything more and could only nod, nod, nod. Although Qin Yinan also knew that Lu Chang'an's nod and Shang Guandandan's nod both had the meaning of I don't want to say more, you understand, but Qin Yinan didn't want to understand now and only took his nodding as agreement. Lu Yuwang glanced at Qin Yinan twice, then at Lu Chang'an. Why do you feel something is wrong? On the surface, Qin Yinan was talking about massage, but he was actually talking about massage, right? But why does it sound so ambiguous? There is always a bit of evil. She is still addicted, she still has some thoughts, and she even dreams about it. No wonder Nuan likes to be jealous of Qin Yinan. Take a closer look at Qin Yinan. She is already 25 years old. She is neither in love nor looking for a partner. I heard from the school teacher that several teachers wanted to introduce her to a partner, but she refused. Some of them had high self-esteem and indeed had some. There are no young talents with abilities that she likes. But this woman also has a pretty foxy face, and there is always a sense of romance between her eyebrows. Despite her usually cold and noble appearance, it seems that everyone she meets is someone who owes her money, but she was not like that just now. That likes to be shy and reserved, isn't that an expression that Nuan also likes to make? Lu Yuwang couldn't say anything, so he tapped Lu Chang'an's arm with his finger and asked him to turn around. Do you have classes this afternoon? There is no class. What about Nuan? Have class. Forget it, just go with me and explain. I want to order 2 autumn clothes. Since Lu Yuwang fully recognized his daughter's boyfriend, he no longer used observation and explanation. I faced Lu Chang'an at a less enthusiastic distance. My daughter's boyfriend was really useful. I always felt that when I was unsure or needed some advice, Lu Chang'an's advice would be useful. Otherwise, when she goes to order clothes, there is no need to ask Lu Chang'an, she just wants him to do something. I happened to be going to. Lu Chang'an had nothing to do, so he agreed. Then I'll go get the car. Lu Yuwang glanced at Qin Yinan and turned his head to inquire, Teacher Qin, are you? I still have a job, of course. Qin Yinan didn't join in the fun and said with a smile, you go ahead, I'll have a word with my cousin. Okay. Lu Yuwang left. Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan were left. There were people coming and going in the academy square. The three of them were quite eye-catching just now, mainly Lu Yuwang and Qin Yanan were eye-catching. The two most attractive mature women of Xiongnan University were walking together. Not only the men with strong hormone secretions were staring at them. Student. Girls also like to look at beauties. Facing figures like Lu Yuwang and Qin Yanan, girls who are most prone to jealousy will feel a little powerless. With such a figure and a face like this, if they need surgery to repair them, the surgeon will do it. How good is the doctor's technique and aesthetics? It may be dozens or hundreds of operations. Not to mention the cost, the body cannot bear it, so it is better to reincarnate directly. One can only hope to be reincarnated. Women think about nothing more than this, and men think a lot about, what kind of man does it take to enjoy such a woman? Or secretly take a photo of Qin Yanan and Lu Yuwang, and post it to the forum to ask questions such as which one do you choose? Asking which one to choose all day long, it seems that it is useful to choose. As a result, Lu Chang'an received a lot of meaningful looks. However, except for the various lights in the sky, which gave him the feeling of bathing in them, he didn't care about other people's looks. What do you think? Lu Chang'an asked, wanting to know more. What? Qin Yanan held her hands together and looked around. She knew that she had been impulsive just now, but wasn't that because Lu Yuwang was here? Could it be that Lu Yuwang was really capable of random thoughts? If she really wants to think wildly and make random guesses about the relationship between Qin Yanan and Lu Chang'an, then Qin Yanan should just be shy. It's not like facing Anyuan, the fifth ocean after the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and Arctic Ocean, the ocean of vinegar. When did I give you a massage? What I'm saying is, you pressed me and touched me. Women hate men who refuse to admit their debts. This is not Qin Yanan's intention to raise old debts again. You can put these things down, but you can't act like you don't have these things. It seems that Qin Yanan only competes with him because of this, and for no other reason. As for wanting to use what happened in the past to interfere with how everyone gets along now, Qin Yanan really doesn't think so, really. Lu Chang'an took a deep breath. No one of these women is easy to deal with. To be precise, it's how Yesijin feels. Everything you press and touch is Yesijin. What I just said hurt a little at first. This is also to speak for Yesijin. I think what happened that night is actually what you feel. Do you want to know Yesijin's feelings and thoughts? Qin Yanan seemed to be talking about only other people, but her eyes turned around, not so natural, and refused to meet Lu Chang'an's eyes. Actually, Yesijin just feels like that. She doesn't. It's not that I'm disgusted or disgusted. There's no need for you to feel uncomfortable facing her and leave. Lu Chang'an opened his mouth slightly, but finally said nothing. No matter what you did to her, Yesijin never blamed you. She loves you, so she can bear everything. Qin Yanan turned her head and looked at Lu Chang'an stubbornly. So, no matter what I did, I won't allow it. You blame me. After Qin Yanan finished speaking, he did not wait for Lu Chang'an to express his agreement or disagreement. He took a few hurried steps, slowed down, paused, and finally trotted away without looking back. Lu Chang'an couldn't determine what kind of expression she had when her back was turned to him just now. Shy, hesitant, regretful, or relaxed, or maybe like Yesijin back then. Every time she saw him and Sumei together, she always had a light smile on her face. At this time, I would also think that if Sumei hadn't planned this way and these things happened by mistake, Qin Yanan would no longer be in front of her today. As time goes by, opinions on some things will change. Things change and opinions change. There is no final ending, just take a walk and see. Qin Yanan is also a measured person, but she really didn't expect that she would talk about such a past event under the pretense of a massage. Are you ashamed? I'm afraid she'll have to hug her pillow when she gets home and regret why she was so bold. Lu Chang'an smiled, and when he saw Lu Yuwang's car approaching, he got in the car and said he was going to the dormitory to pick up something. So he could please turn around. Lu Yuwang sent Lu Chang'an back to his dormitory. When he went upstairs to get a bag, he took a casual look and knew it was a women's dress or skirt. "And Nuan, your mother and I went to explain. Your mother said she wanted to order 2 clothes. I happened to have something to go to." Lu Chang'an got in the car and called in Nuan first. The corners of Lu Yuwang's mouth curled up slightly. "I want to go too," and Nuan felt that the situation was urgent and immediately shouted, "Tell Professor Lu to turn around and pick me up." "Don't you have a class in the afternoon?" Lu Chang'an wanted to give her a surprise, so how could he take her there? "But if you go alone with her, I'm not worried." And Nuan yelled, and Lu Yuwang heard it. She blushed in embarrassment and said angrily, "What is your name? Believe it or not, I will drive over and beat you up first." And Nuan was a little scared. It was not uncommon for him to be chased around the Hunan University campus by Professor Lu with a feather duster when he was a child, for example, that time he and Hans Hizi were bitten by a dog. If you are beaten in public, how can you behave like a well-behaved baby like Sui Jing in the future? Then control yourself, don't be tempted, always remember my cute appearance, my beautiful appearance, the way you like it." And Nuan had no choice but to give up unwillingly, and lowered her voice to teach him that Professor Lu was such a stunning figure in the world. "In front of you, watch your eyes, nose, and mind." Okay, I'll take out my phone and look at the wallpaper." After a while Lu Chang'an agreed. "Be good, and next time you give me a massage, I will give you a special reward." And Nuan decided to spend money to help Lu Chang'an stabilize his Taoist heart first. In fact, it's not really distrust or worry, it's just that girls actually like seducing their boyfriends, even if they are not ready to do something about it. "Okay, remember what you said." Lu Chang'an immediately showed great expectations, using this attitude to satisfy her and make her believe that her charm was controlling her to prevent her from being endless. And Nuan shyly and proudly shook her head and hung up the phone. "You can't tell, you have bronchitis. If you go out with me, you have to report and ask for approval." Lu Yuwang was surprised and funny at the same time, and he could still feel the sweetness in it. The little girl and Nuan felt in her heart, "Are you proud? You understand and I understand, I'm afraid of her." Lu Chang'an smiled. Lu Yuwang also laughed. There was a tacit understanding on this matter. They were all people who loved her, and they couldn't do anything about her. They were just jealous. "I have something to ask you for. I will choose the pattern and color later and tell Wang Jiangzi my ideas. Please give me some advice. I see that the cheongsam you gave in Nuan, from the material selection to the design theme, is very professional and outstanding." Lu Yuwang revealed what he really wanted from Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an said, "This kind of clothing customization does not mean taking measurements and handing everything over to the designer." "What are you holding?" Lu Yuwang was a little curious about the bag Lu Chang'an was holding. "This is a Lolita skirt, I used it as a reference. And Nuan actually likes this gorgeous and cute little skirt, but she is too tall, and the mass-produced Lolita skirts are not very suitable for her. I probably am not very suitable for this style," Lu Yuwang said with some reluctance. Lu Chang'an smiled but did not nod. She just said it casually. It was best not to cater to her and express that it was really not suitable for her. When they came to explain, Lu Yuwang parked the car and walked in with Lu Chang'an. Wang Jiangzi was upstairs. Lu Yuwang and Wang Jiangzi were friends. After making an appointment, they went directly to Wang Jiangzi's studio without being led by the clerk. "I brought my son-in-law to help us out," Wang Jiangzi said with a smile. "He is very capable. You have seen the cheongsam he made for An Nuan. If my daughter hadn't cherished him and wouldn't let me use him as a tailor, I wouldn't be in your business." "Yes," Lu Yuwang also said with a smile. "That's not okay. Every time I make you new clothes, I take a few photos and post them on WeChat to attract business." Wang Jiangzi also told the truth. "Women always buy impulsively. There is always a way that you see her dressed like this. It looks good, I want to try it. The comparison between buyers shows and sellers shows is not uncommon, but I have never seen sellers find models with more ordinary conditions to show buyers a WYSIWYG effect. Lu Chang'an chatted with Lu Yuwang and Wang Jiangzi for a while, and after settling Lu Yuwang's needs, he borrowed Wang Jiangzi's studio and started writing and painting. Lu Yuwang and Wang Jiangzi made tea, and while drinking tea and chatting, they paid attention to Lu Chang'an's movements. Write poems and songs. The painting is of a Nuan's voice, appearance, and smile. The two middle-aged women looked at his serious look, and their eyes gradually became gentle. If they didn't really like him, how could they exude such a thoughtful and quiet temperament? The corners of his mouth would turn up from time to time, and he must be thinking about her from time to time. I think the most beautiful artistic conception is still expressed in thousands of years of poems and songs, but in this vast sea of literature, it is not easy to find the sentences that best express the feeling an Nuan gives me to form a picture. Things Lu Chang'an accidentally looked up and saw them staring at him. Unknowingly, they had already drank a pot of tea and chatted for a long time. Then he explained, first set an artistic conception as the theme design direction, and then I'm looking for a suitable color, and if I tell you that it may not be available here, please ask Master Wang to help me pay attention. No problem, Wang Jiangzi said softly, thinking that when she was young, she had to have a man who treated her with such care, and that kind of love would be so intoxicating. In comparison, what his skills are is not that important, women are emotional after all. Lu Yuwang couldn't stay here forever. After a while, she answered a phone call and was about to leave. Wang Jiangzi accompanied her to a special room, measured her size, and sent Lu Yuwang off. Wang Jiangzi came up to watch Lu Chang'an's writing and painting for a while. What surprised her was that the more she watched, the more she saw his level of performance. These fragmentary calligraphy and paintings, not to mention aura and style, etc. It's true, the foundation is really solid, and it's definitely not something that ordinary people can achieve after studying for 10 or 8 years. This talent, isn't it just a talent? He has to start practicing it from his mother's womb, right? Wang Jiangzi was puzzled and could only explain that the growth of a genius was beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Watching Lu Chang'an write and draw is a pleasure. Wang Jiangzi no longer cares that his original intention is to verify Lu Chang'an's technical level. After Lu Yuwang left, Lu Chang'an didn't stay here any longer. He thanked him and left. Not walking far, after exiting the archway at the intersection of Zipping Street, Lu Chang'an saw Lu Yuwang's car, which had been away for some time, and was parked on the side of the road. It seemed that there had been some kind of car accident. A head fell to the ground, which was shocking. I present a 10,000-word chapter. Please give me your monthly recommendation. I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning and stopped writing in the middle. I finally finished it before the pain from the stone became unbearable. I would like to recommend to everyone a very fat and good book, Roulette of Doom. You can read it and leave a paw print to prove that Xiahua once loved. Oh, no, I recommended it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 469. It was not yet time to get off work, when the traffic flow on the street was not the densest. Stop-and-go electric vehicles and idle pedestrians slowly gathered. A line of primary school students, pulling their clothes off one after another, passed by a convenience store under the leadership of their teacher. The young man carrying instant noodles came out with his chopsticks in his mouth and stood on the street in shock. The black skid marks are eye-catching. Facing the big archway at Zipping Street, the traffic lights are flashing. Someone is standing on the opposite side of the zebra crossing and looking over here, as if they have sensed that something extraordinary has happened. It's not always common for your head to fall to the ground. The red Volvo was parked in place. This brand has always used safety as a marketing point, but the safety emphasized by most cars of course refers to protecting the driver and passengers. Some cars also say they absorb energy and can protect pedestrians. But no matter what kind of car, the human body seems too fragile in front of them. But, there was no blood on the ground, no dripping blood, and the body looked particularly fragmented. A head without a drop of blood, as clean as a toy doll's head that had been torn off by a child. Lu Chang'an walked over and saw Lu Yuwang sitting motionless in the driver's seat with the window open. Lu Chang'an stretched out a finger and pressed Lu Yuwang's neck and found that she had just fainted. It knocked other people's heads off their necks, but she herself just fainted from fright and her neck was crooked. Lu Chang'an stopped caring about Lu Yuwang and picked up the head. Ah! Young man! Tease! There were exclamations of surprise among the onlookers, who were startled by Lu Chang'an's action. If you really picked up a doll's head, it wouldn't have this effect. But a human head without blood is definitely not a real human head. It's just that it looks so much like a real person, with its delicate skin, lifelike expression, moist lips, and nostrils where you can see the nose hairs. Everyone knew that this shouldn't be a real person, but looking at it from a distance, it looked too much like a real person, so it seemed particularly weird. Lu Chang'an dared to pick up the human head, which naturally made people feel frightened. Lu Chang'an lifted it up and looked at the broken position of its neck. A layer of translucent liquid was flowing, covering the entire broken surface. Under this layer of translucent liquid, some electronic components and circuits can be vaguely seen. This is a robot with bionic skin, which is very realistic. Lu Chang'an looked at the robot's head again. The long golden hair was like flowing golden liquid under the setting sun. There was no blood color or skin pores on the fair cheeks. They looked so delicate that they didn't look like real people. This was probably not done. The appearance of the skin does not completely resemble that of a real person, but is dictated by the designer's aesthetics. This kind of clean white skin, paired with the facial features of a Western girl, makes it look a bit beautiful. Lu Chang'an remembered that when he, and Nuan, Miao Yingying, and Bai Hui went to see off Gao Duai, and Nuan left first. Bai Hui took out a photo and said that it was a girl from Hunan University who could compete with An Nuan for the status of campus beauty. It vaguely looks like the robot girl in front of me. At least that's the face. It's just that the girl in the photo has her eyes open, and her eyes are a bit out of focus. The robot girl in front of her has her eyes closed. Perhaps it was indeed this robot girl that Bai Hui photographed, that's why her eyes were so empty. At this time, the robot girl's eyes suddenly opened, and the corners of her mouth turned up in an arc combined with her expression and her eyes that suddenly gained energy. It looked extremely strange. At this time, Lu Yuwang woke up, happened to see the scene, screamed and fainted again. Naughty Lu Chang'an said. He suspected that the robot girl sensed that Lu Yuwang had woken up and deliberately startled Lu Yuwang again. Lu Chang'an held up its head and walked to the front of the car. He saw its torso lying on the ground, but it didn't look like the torso was broken. Young man, you'd better put down this head first, it's so scary. A middle-aged man chewing betel nut advised him. He was probably a little excited and stimulated. He chewed the betel nut much faster, as if he wanted to crush the betel nut and swallow it quickly. It's not scary. Lu Chang'an shook his head. If it really is scary, why are you eating betel nuts and minding other people's business while watching the excitement? Lu Chang'an glanced at the face of the robot girl again, which was staring at its body. The body that fell to the ground suddenly twisted. Ah! The twisting headless body, even without the blood flowing, was really terrifying. The crowd around him was so frightened that the people around him retreated far away. The middle-aged man who had just advised Lu Chang'an even vomited out the betel nuts and dropped them on the ground. The remaining betel nut residue resembles the dried feces of herbivorous animals. Please put me on the ground, I want to operate the body to reconnect. The robot girl suddenly made a voice. Are you using Bluetooth? Lu Chang'an said casually, not knowing much about wireless connection protocols. Ha ha ha, hee hee. This is probably the point of laughter that only robots can feel, and the robot girl laughed. Listening to this soft yet wild and playful laughter, Lu Chang'an suddenly remembered that he had heard the exact same sound in the cave in Gongjiaja. That was the voice of the robot that Professor Crick talked to before he and Qinyan met Professor Crick. Could the robot in front of me be the same? It's just that the robot's voice can naturally be copied. The one in front of me is probably not the one whose head was removed by Professor Crick in the cave. It is more likely that they are the same model. What the hell is this? It's a robot. There are actually such advanced robots. What's so strange about that? Japan has already used robots to film porn. Go back and send me a mysterious code. The onlookers were talking a lot, but Lu Chang'an remembered the conversation between the robot and Professor Crick. What did the robot in the cave say? Madam is the only vampire in the world who has been personally blessed by the blood ancestor. This coffin is an artifact left by the blood ancestor in the world. Only by getting this coffin can the madam return to the blood ancestor. Hundreds years ago, madam was seriously injured, and the blood ancestor allowed his blood to flow into madam's body, and madam gained eternal life from then on. You have made a great contribution this time, and madam will definitely reward you. At that time, Professor Crick believed that the robot only used content on the internet to program MRS and believed that the robot's AI design was the most illogical and boring of any artificial intelligence he had ever seen. Thinking about it now, of course the robot's words were not randomly arranged. Some of them are right and some are wrong, in other words, some of them are proven to be right. As for other contents, they need to be verified or worthy of analysis. At that time, MRS Karnstein should actually have been completely controlled by Sunangziu. I was afraid that the robot originally belonging to MRS Karnstein would also rebel. This may be the reason why after Lu Chang'an defeated Professor Crick, he asked Professor Crick to send a message to MRS Karnstein but there was no response at all. In other words, the robot in front of her should now belong to Sunangziu. At present, MRS Karnstein has no sign of being able to take everything back. So, this robot appeared here and happened to be hit by Lu Yuwang. Is this a coincidence? Who can believe this theory of coincidence? It's a fairy. At this time, a small van parked behind the red Volvo, and several young men in blue overalls ran out and picked up the robot's body. Sir, I'm sorry, this is our product. There is something wrong with it? We have to repair it. A young man with a mustache who looked like the leader politely asked Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an raised his head and handed it to him. Thank you. The young man took it and got it to the car. The transport truck quickly drove away from the red Volvo. Lu Chang'an removed Lu Yuwang from the driver's seat and placed him on the passenger seat. Then he caught up with the transport truck and followed while keeping a distance. When the car passed the Juzhu Bridge, Lu Yuwang woke up again. Ah, Chang'an. Lu Yuwang saw Lu Chang'an. Although he felt more at ease, he still grabbed Lu Chang'an's arm with lingering fear. Oh my God, now. Never mind. How could it be okay? Lu Yuwang's eyes seemed to still have the image of the head smiling at him, and his face turned pale. What you hit was just a robot, Lu Chang'an explained. Lu Yuwang was stunned for a moment. Robot? Robots are not human beings. No matter how human-like a robot is, it is not a human being. Regarding safeguarding the rights and interests of robots and fighting for equal rights and interests for robots and humans, this is probably some kind of political correctness in decades or even centuries. But not now. Is it really just a robot? Lu Yuwang still found it unbelievable. She only fainted for the first time when she saw a person hit his head and flew towards her. If you were a real person, would I be leading you to escape from a traffic accident? Lu Chang'an smiled, but it's also possible that I'm taking you to surrender. Seeing him joking, Lu Yuwang finally relaxed. How could you take it upon yourself to send me to surrender? Lu Yuwang realized the point as if he had come to his senses, and hit Lu Chang'an on the shoulder. The most you can do is persuade me to surrender. It's just a joke. Lu Chang'an looked calmly ahead while driving. How did I encounter this? It's really just a robot. Fortunately, this is the first time I have encountered this kind of thing. I usually drive very carefully, but the robot just swished to the ground. It's like appearing there. Lu Yuwang could still feel the panic in his heart, and he rambled on about the situation just now to Lu Chang'an. After listening for a while, I didn't get any useful information. Lu Yuwang kept talking about how careful and safe she usually drives. Lu Chang'an also knew that she was frightened. It is possible for a person to lose physiological functions in a state of panic. She was afraid that her state of panic would last for a few days, so he could remind An Nuan to sleep with her at night. Then Lu Chang'an can't climb out of the window in the past few days. Hey, let's sacrifice it? Hey, the car went too far. Aren't you going to take me back? Lu Yuwang was a little surprised. This road was wrong. He couldn't really send himself to surrender, right? The robot was taken away just now. I have to go and have a look. Isn't it their fault? I'm going to ask for an explanation. Lu Chang'an followed the van and drove into Xiongnan University. He just passed by the Orange Garden community. Sorry, I assembled a bookshelf today. I twisted the screwdriver too much and my wrists are sore. There is nothing I can do. There are too many books and they are too messy, taking up too much space. I will add another 9,000 words tomorrow to express my apology. I recommend an extremely interesting book, The Rebirth of the Pig Farmer. Just hearing this name makes people want to read it, right? I have really read this book, Xiahua. It is indeed interesting and worth reading. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 470. Lu Yuwang has never thought about this problem. Like most people, Lu Yuwang habitually feels that doing more is worse than doing less. That's true. As an adult, I was scared to death. What if I scared the children? There was an elementary school nearby just now. After hearing what Lu Chang'an said, Lu Yuwang felt that this was also the case. Lu Chang'an glanced at Lu Yuwang. Actually, the key is that it is so realistic and lifelike. Indeed, Lu Yuwang nodded, and she took one look at that head, and it was so scary that he was still smiling. The skin is just like the real thing, smooth and delicate, even the lip lines are very delicate and natural. Lu Yuwang quietly looked at the skin of her arms, and then felt that it was not the most delicate skin on her body, and she didn't take it seriously. She still had some confidence. No matter how good a robot's skin was, it could still be with the skin. Can't compare to real people? No matter how smooth and delicate it is still not the texture of real skin. It feels to me like I made a human clone shell and filled it with robot materials, such as an electronic brain, a nutrient solution system, a mechanical skeleton, and so on. What do you mean? Lu Yuwang was startled. You mean it was made by a real person who dug out the organs inside? Lu Chang'an smiled. Lu Yuwang reacted and rolled his eyes at Lu Chang'an. This man actually wanted to scare him. In fact, if we really achieve this step, what is needed is a leap forward in the entire industrial civilization of mankind, which involves the development of breakthrough technologies in many professional fields. How can we dig out the brain and internal organs of a real person and fill them with electronic equipment? Robots are still in the category of horror science fiction. Lu Chang'an just said it casually, bullying Professor Lu as a major in the field of liberal arts. If we really have this technology, we can probably make it exactly the same. How can we use clones as shells? This is too scary. Lu Yuwang shook his head. This is indeed the setting of a horror story. Even if it is a clone, the person looks like a normal person, not a chicken, a duck, or a fish. It gives people a feeling of being of the same race. How could anyone do this? Of course someone has done it. Lu Chang'an is quite certain about this. The only thing that limits human beings is the level of science and technology, not things like ethics, morality, and human nature. Lu Yuwang sighed softly. Although she asked, who could have done this, she still had a clear understanding of Lu Chang'an's judgment. She was in her 30s and lived with a simple and kind attitude. Living your own life does not necessarily mean that you are ignorant of the dark side of human beings. Lu Chang'an's words still reminded Lu Yuwang of some past events. Although I had thought about not caring about the truth anymore and whether he was the uncle or not. But I still feel that if he is really that uncle, it wouldn't be very strange. After all, he feels that the only people who limit human beings are people with scientific and technical levels. If he was really that uncle who was playing tricks on his girlfriend's mother, he would really be able to do it. Disregarding ethics, morality, and inhumanity. Lu Yuwang took a few deep breaths and told herself not to worry about those things anymore. Speaking of the development of science and technology, I was working on a project recently and found that until the late 17th century, the scientific and technological levels of China and the West, especially in terms of military technology, were actually on par. Lu Yuwang dusting off her skirt. She realized that the hem of her skirt was wrinkled, revealing the round curves of her thighs. She was wearing a pair of thin black leggings, which were not revealing, but after all, they felt a little inappropriate, so she quickly lifted them up. She adjusted her skirt. His eyes rolled, and he glanced out of the corner of his eye. Lu Chang'an was concentrating on driving, thinking of An Nuan, who was so jealous. If she were here now, she would probably blame Lu Yuwang for not paying attention. In fact, her boyfriend is still worth it. Trustworthy, Lu Yuwang never noticed that Lu Chang'an was secretly looking at him, or showing some lewd looks. Lu Yuwang decided that she didn't care about it, but it didn't prevent her from naturally chatting with him about some professional topics at certain times. It was actually difficult to change a person's chatting habits. For example, he was against the tendency of topic interest, his habit of telling details and controlling the pace of topics, etc. If we talk more, maybe he will reveal his flaws. She doesn't want to pursue anything, she just wants to have some peace of mind. Yes, we often say that the Song dynasty was weak, but in fact, if we just talk about the level of military science and technology, there was a strong breakthrough in the Song dynasty. This established the fact that the level of military science and technology did not really lag behind that of the West until the 17th century. This is under the premise that the Song dynasty suppressed the military attaches, which brought a lot of negative effects on the development of military technology. Lu Chang'an sighed regretfully. Talking about the Song dynasty, he still remembered Kaifeng at that time, with bright lights at night and a bustling crowd. Tile houses and bars, restaurants and tea houses, non-stop music, often all night long, which is not at all inferior to the current city nightlife. For example, the liveliness of Tokyo's Mahang Street night market at that time was far more lively than any bar street in Junsha today, or as much as the most prosperous night market. The Song dynasty is a dynasty that is quite difficult to describe, but the strong breakthroughs in military science and technology you mentioned, I think, were developed on the basis of the wealthy economy of the Song dynasty. Such strong economic conditions, even under various conditions that are not conducive to the level of military science and technology under the conditions of development, it still brought breakthroughs. It is enough to show that the foundation of economic development determines the development speed and level of military science and technology. Lu Yuwang paid attention to the details of Lu Chang'an's chat while discussing with him seriously. Because Lu Chang'an does have such a level, he can give her some inspiration and help for her subject. For example, our country's current military construction, which is said to be making dumplings, is actually just making up lessons, but without economic development as the foundation, it is impossible to talk about it. In other words, the pace will slow down too much, and it can't be made up even if it is corrected. You are right, in the Song dynasty, it was not the emperor or the civil service system who actively promoted the development of military science and technology. This was just the dividend brought by the extremely strong economic level at that time. Lu Chang'an glanced sideways at Lu Yuwang and found that she was looking at herself with serious eyes that concealed what she was thinking about. Did she want to study him or test him? Lu Chang'an did not interrupt the topic deliberately, and continued, "It is recorded in Tiwaishinkanton that at that time in Tokyo's Mahang Street night market, there were mosquitoes and gnats all over the world, and there were no mosquitoes on Mahang Street alone in the capital. Those who walked on Mahang Street, the night market and restaurants in the capital are very prosperous. Mosquitoes and gnats are evil, and the horses and people are noisy. The lights are shining in the sky, and the drums stop at the fourth watch, so mosquitoes and gnats will never be seen. That is to say, there are too many people in the night market on Ma Sing Street. Mosquitoes are flying around inside, and they are accidentally eaten clean by people's breath. This means, every time I think of the Song dynasty, I will think of Xin Kiji's The Green Jade Case, UN 11. Thousands of flowers bloom on an east wind night. The stars are like rain. BMW carvings fill the road with fragrance, the phoenix flute sounds, and the jade pot turns light. Fish and dragons danced all night. Moths were like golden threads in the snow and willows. Laughter was filled with dark fragrance. The crowd searched for him thousands of times. Suddenly looking back, that person was there, in the dim light reciting this poem. Lu Yuwang's eyes changed from just a slender one. The white and tender fingers moved up and landed on the side of Lu Chang'an's face. At this moment, there was a vague and almost conclusive intuition. People were searching for him 1,000 times. Lu Yuwang remained calm and said calmly, "This poem is very popular among modern people, because it outlines all the beautiful feelings of modern people towards ancient times, as if those times should be so elegant and sentimental. Deliberate flowers don't bloom." Lu Chang'an stopped in time. He really just had such a feeling. He smiled and thanked, "I haven't decided what kind of theme I should design for an Nuan today. It's you. This poem that I suddenly read inspired me, and this poem is just right." But it's still early for New Year's Eve. Lu Yuwang was stunned for a moment. "It doesn't matter. She was wearing this skirt during the Lantern Festival and was waiting for me in the dimly lit place." Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously. "But this poem is actually not just about the excitement of the Lantern Festival. Your meaning is too casual, and it is not a poem suitable for skirts." Lu Yuwang couldn't help but continue to be dissatisfied. Of course Xin Kiji had a background for writing this poem, but once the work was written, there were various interpretations. How can it be understood? Such rigid and demanding emphasis on the original meaning of the poem is a misunderstanding of the art of poetry. Lu Chang'an shook his head and did not agree with Lu Yuwang's point of view. The most important point is that regardless of how you understand the original meaning of the poem, there is one thing you must pay attention to. In Xin Kiji's poem, the person who did not follow the crowd and enjoyed the prosperity stood in a lonely and calm place. Man actually refers to himself. He is dissatisfied with the peacefulness of the court at this time, and still pretends to be a peaceful and prosperous age. The man in the dimly lit place is actually the projection of Xin Kiji himself. You use this as the theme to mean your love is only sweet on the surface, but in fact you are still lonely inside, Lu Yuwang said unconvinced. Lu Chang'an was a little surprised, and said in disbelief, "Can you study whether he is a boy or a girl in looking for him in the public, and by the way, it can be related to the issue of women's rights? Would you like to talk about Wan Kuo Ei's song again? The three realms of understanding the poem, and then say that this poem talks about the three realms of scholarship, reminding us that we should study hard. It's not, it's totally unreasonable." Lu Yuwang coughed lightly, knowing that he was overstepping the mark, but after all, he felt that it was a bit annoying for his daughter and son-in-law to show affection too often. He pointed to the front. "That car is surrounded by. I've been around the North Campus several times. What are you going to do? I found out that we are following you. I don't want to expose my destination, or I am just asking for instructions and waiting for the next step of action. Then what should we do? Lu Yuwang was a little confused. What did Lu Chang'an want to do? This situation is a bit like those on TV, where the good guys are tracking the bad guys. I'll take you back first. Lu Chang'an's cell phone rang. It was An Nuan who came to check the post. He took the phone and showed Lu Yuan Nuan's name on the screen. Don't answer, I'm so annoyed. Lu Yuwang was afraid that if he answered the phone, An Nuan would talk nonsense again, out of sight and out of mind. Lu Chang'an dropped Lu Yuwang off at the entrance of Juyuan community and didn't drive in. After getting off the car, he walked straight ahead. This place is not far from Sunangziu's glass house. Lu Chang'an also noticed just now that the van was circling in several streets around the North Campus, and the center of its circular path was actually Sunangziu's glass house. Lu Chang'an walked over directly, neither too fast nor too slow. He originally thought that the van should have completed its task and sent the robot to the glass house, but he did not expect that when he approached, he just saw the underground parking lot on the side of the glass house open. The truck is sinking slowly. It seems that this glass house is not just a living place for Sunangziu to study and live at Shonan University, but may also serve as a base. Lu Chang'an thought of the disappeared Tesla Biological Research Institute base at the foothills of Lushan Mountain. At that time, he and Qin Yanan also speculated that the base should be underground, but the entrance was not found. Seeing the van that was supposed to contain the robot with the severed head sinking into the ground, Lu Chang'an looked up and saw a girl who looked exactly like the robot, standing on the ground looking at Lu Chang'an. Is it a human, or another robot? Lu Chang'an walked over, and the girl turned around and walked into the glass house. Lu Chang'an didn't care if this was a trap. After approaching the glass house, he saw a sensor door where the girl turned and walked in. Looking inside through the door, the girl could no longer be seen. If this girl is also a robot, how many robot girls are there that look exactly the same? Robots of this level are really rare. Among the various humanoid robots that have appeared in the world, none of them have been made public at this level. Lu Chang'an originally told Lu Yuwang that he would really use human cloning, or artificially cultivated human torsos, and 3D printed human organs in the field of robotics, and combine biological tissues with electronic equipment and other systems to achieve the current level of human science and technology and industry is unreachable. In fact, with the robot as it is now, Lu Chang'an thought of the translucent liquid covering the broken neck of the robot. If these liquids serve to create a liquid environment in the robot's body, or even serve a similar function to human tissue fluid, it would make people feel unbelievable. Lu Chang'an approached, the sensor door opened, and Lu Chang'an walked in. This was a long corridor. Lu Chang'an looked left and right, but did not look at the figure of the girl just now. He walked forward casually, but heard a burst of human voices. Some young men and women gathered together, with energetic expressions on their faces, and were discussing something. In front of them, two robots were performing a fighting match. This kind of robot looks much more normal. It has wheels, exposed circuits and electronic components, and looks like two toy cars. I didn't expect our school to achieve such good results in the field of robotics. It is said that the team from the School of Electrical and Information Engineering of our school won the first prize in the undifferentiated 1v1 fighting competition in the World Robot Competition during the summer vacation. A soft voice sounded, with a slightly surprised joy, which immediately gave people a sense of accomplishment. Lu Chang'an had not officially met her yet, but after hearing the voice and seeing the delicate girl walking in front of everyone, Lu Chang'an knew who she was. My hands hurt, my hands really hurt. I ordered an electric screwdriver first, but now my wrist is still very painful. I really can't complete the attack today. Give me another day. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Siahua. Chapter 471. We met without saying a word, a hibiscus caught the autumn rain. I have a small blush, my temples are slanting and my heart is curled up. When the general calls out, he is afraid of being seen. If you want to complain about your deep feelings, you turn around and knock on the jade hairpin. Reduced word magnolia, no words when meeting, Nalen zinged. The first time I saw her was at the beginning of the last century. That year, she was young, with a smile on her face and a shy expression. She got out of a Rolls-Royce and stepped on the wet bluestone pavement in front of Yes House. The hem of her skirt was swaying, and only the cute peach blossoms on the toes of her shoes were exposed. She walked slowly in front of him and looked at him with a little curiosity. When we met, it was Nalen Zing's reduced words magnolia meet without saying, and after parting there was always something like the bright moon was there at that time, and the colorful clouds returned in Yanjidao's Linjiang Immortal Dream Queen Tower High Lock with emotion. When we met again, I never expected that the beauty would still be the same. She was still wearing the lake green dress, which was as gentle as a weeping willow branch being touched by shallow water waves. The smile at the corner of her mouth was as if she was weeping and singing beautiful music as it crossed the strings of a piano. Whether it is Sunangzio now or Sumei back then, they are both extremely beautiful, otherwise the eldest young master of the Ye family would not have given her the qualifications and opportunities to obtain essence. After living for so many years, in fact, such scenes are not common. She was 100 years ago and she was 100 years later. It was as if she had traveled through time, from the beginning of the last century to today in the new century. Most of those people back then have turned into dust and bones. Qinpeng and Suzayakyoi have grown old, Yesijin has become Qinyanan, and Sumei has become Sunangziu, but they just changed their names. She is still the same. The event section of this conference, as the top event in the field of robotics, has achieved full coverage of land, sea, and air, and the size of the participating teams can rival the Olympic Games, including the UF Open Finals, BCI brain-controlled robot competition, fighting robot competition. In competitions such as the Youth Design Competition, Shonan University's participating teams stood out among more than 1,000 teams and achieved good results. I also decided to establish a scholarship for Shonan University to develop and cultivate more robot research and design talents. Sunangzio smiled slightly and looked at these young people who had just achieved impressive results during the summer vacation with gentle eyes. Although she was only 14 years old in the eyes of these people, they did not treat her casually as a young girl. Many times, mastering resources means strength. With strength, you have aura, which can make people ignore age, gender, and appearance. Being invited to come here, the instructor of the Modern Engineering Training Center warned that this Sunangzio was the key figure in whether Hunan University could obtain this fund. Originally, he just wanted to appear to have a good attitude, but when he saw Sunangzio, under her eyes, no one needed to maintain his posture. The pressure hidden under that shallow smile was able to make people clearly feel that they must not take themselves too seriously in front of her. As an additional reward, after the lecture fund is established, the winning students and instructors of this World Robot Competition will be organized to visit Boston Dynamics and have the opportunity to have close contact with Atlas. Oh! Several young people cheered, while others cast envious eyes. Next, my assistant Guan Yuan will lead everyone to visit and have dinner. The chef for the dinner is from Zuji Restaurant in Bailong Center. Mr. Zhang Jiai, the chef from the 3-star Michelin restaurant in Taiwan, please enjoy it. Sunangzio introduced with a smile. I looked at Guan Yuan who came over. Guan Yuan carried Sunangzio on his back and nodded with some admiration. Although he was only used by Sunangzio to do odd jobs, didn't these people know? They must have regarded themselves as younger and more promising elites. A freshman became Sunangzio's assistant. Isn't it worthy of their respect? There seems to be a girl here who looks at me with admiration. After all, compared to robots, Young elites like me who exude executive temperament are more attractive. Guan Yuan turned around to lead the way, but saw Lu Chang'an outside the glass door on the other side, looking inside quietly. Guan Yuan hurriedly greeted him with an extremely warm smile on his face. Before the door could be opened, he hurriedly shouted, "Brother, brother, why are you here? Are you here to see my sister-in-law?" Guan Yuan's words not only surprised Lu Chang'an, but also made Sunangziu, who had frowned slightly at Guan Yuan's frivolous gesture, have a strange look on his face. A touch of shyness is the most touching. Sunangziu raised her fingers and pressed her eyebrows and feet, instantly hiding her charming shyness. Her brows were still furrowed because someone had heard what Guan Yuan was shouting. Most people didn't realize who the sister-in-law was, and some were wondering if it was Sunangziu. How old is the scholar Sunan? So isn't this brother a beast? What nonsense are you talking about? Lu Chang'an smiled. I still like the way you looked before, when I was the leading actor, with your cool, noble, and elegant temperament. Guan Yuan was a little embarrassed. After all, he was young and his face was not so thick. He was just depressed. Who wouldn't like that? But you don't really like me. If I still look cool and noble like the leading actor, I might be buried alive by you again. Ever since he heard about Sunangziu's intentions towards Lu Chang'an, Guan Yuan understood that he couldn't follow the plot in the novels about king of soldiers or special forces. This was a rivalry and awkwardness between lovers, and he really wanted to help one party clean up. For the other party, the final result is usually that one party feels sorry for the other party, and then both parties work together to vent their anger on him and take care of him. Who is young and crazy? Who doesn't hide their scars after stumbling, reveal a sly smile, and live with a mask? That was the time when the people were dying, and they were walking on the streets, and they were walking in the street. Let's go. Sunangziu motioned to Guan Yuan to get out. Guan Yuan showed a friendly smile to Lu Chang'an, and then led a group of students away. The foothills of the mountain blocked the last sunlight at dusk, and the trees with the tallest branches extending toward the sky on the campus at the foot of the mountain failed to retain the last ray of direct light. The interweaving of light and shadow in the glass room comes from various modeling lamps inside and outside. Sunangziu stood in front of a disc-like floor lamp, as if she were under the moon. Haven't seen you for a long time. Sometimes I always feel that the separation has been too long and there is a lot to say, but after 1,000 words, I finally realize that there is nothing to say, and seeing each other again is just a long time no see after all. Mortals cannot experience too many changes in things and people in their lives, so they will have too many emotions. But for Lu Chang'an, it is normal for the human face to disappear without knowing where to go, and the peach blossoms still smile in the spring breeze. Yes, long time no see. Sunangziu looked at Lu Chang'an quietly. Lu Chang'an nodded, turned around and walked out in the direction he came from. Stop. Sunangziu didn't expect that after he said hello, he seemed to have smiled and forgotten all the grudges. He didn't care, wasn't enthusiastic, wasn't excited, no longer cared, and was about to leave as if he had put down all ties. Why did you just turn around and leave like that? Do you think you are very cool? The way you turned around is very free and easy. Sunangziu's quiet expression disappeared instantly, as if in the summer weather, in the sunny afternoon just now, suddenly dark clouds came over the city. I originally wanted to ask you something. Lu Chang'an stopped, but did not look back. He just looked out the window, but suddenly I felt that there was no need to care about everything in the past, whether you were right or wrong. Everything you have caused, grudges, right and wrong, I have no intention of cleaning up. I want to speak out for others to question you. Life will be long from now on, you go well, life is like a journey against the odds, and I am also a traveler. Ha 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 ha. Lu Chang'an turned around and looked at Sunangziu, who suddenly laughed. She laughed until tears came out of her eyes. Life is like a reverse journey, and I am also a traveler, Sunangzio had a smile in her eyes, and the tears that were about to overflow trembled with her eyelashes. Are you worthy of reciting this sentence? This sentence comes from Linjiang Immortal, Send Money to Mufu. It is a well-known farewell poem, but it was not selected into 300 song poems. Life is like a journey against the odds, and I am also a traveler. These 10 words have written all about life and destiny. In today's terms, it probably means that there are many unsatisfactory life, but you should do it and cherish it. Anyone can recite this sentence except you, but how can a person like you still recite the poems of us mortals? Have you ever understood separation? Sunangzio sneered. I'm afraid you are too deep into the drama and forget it. I am not a person at all. If you are not a human being, how can you have life? How can you be called a traveler? Whether you hate me or blame me, I can accept it, but if you don't even allow me to be a human being, it's too much. Lu Chang'an slowly shook his head. He just expressed his objection, but he didn't say too much. Feel more. Of course, you decide what you are. You don't have a timid and unstable heart and need other people's approval to give you more confidence. If you were a human being, why would you just leave? Someone told you to go to Japan, but you just went there without paying any attention to anything. Do you know what a real person does? He won't abandon his home and loved ones just to watch an atomic bomb explode. If you were a human, how could you decisively leave me? Do you know what a real human would do? He would at least be angry and furious to question me, instead of just leaving without any response. If you were a human being, how could you be so indifferent to me? We all know that one day a couple's kindness lasts 100 days, 100 years of cultivation makes them cross the same boat, and 1,000 years of cultivation makes them sleep together. If you were a human being, how could you cut it off? How many things are involved in a person's life? Cut it off if you said it was cut off, and change it if you wanted to change another life. Even though the two are cut off, they are still connected. What about you? The smile on Sunangzio's face was eventually drowned by tears, and the remaining sneer disappeared with the choking in her throat. She was not hysterical, nor was he roaring like a lion from Hedong. She just looked at him and revealed sentence by sentence why her resentment came from, how unhappy she was because of her obsession over the years, and all her unwillingness towards him was all because of he wanted to break it, he wanted to break it, he broke it. And she doesn't want to stop. She has been looking for the fragile, almost invisible lotus root thread that can be involved with him in this vast sea of people. Now he is standing in front of her, saying life is like a journey, and I am also a traveler, so that she can take care of herself, and then he plans to turn around and leave in a cool way. How can such a good thing happen? I never like to argue or explain about serious matters. I am responsible for my own decisions and bear all the consequences. Lu Chang'an glanced at Sunangzio and said, this is true for you and me. You mean I asked for it? Sunangzio didn't know what to say. This sentence seemed to make her unable to argue, but she was still angry. Because she loves him, everything she does is because of him. Why can't he think about why she does this? You can do anything regardless of the consequences, and there is no problem, but you don't want others to understand you after you do it. I can't understand it, and I don't want to understand it. I will only make my own decisions based on your behavior. Decide. No matter what your purpose was at the time, it doesn't matter anymore. If I have to understand your behavior, I can be considered a human being. If I can't make my own decisions and can only act in accordance with what you understand, then I can be considered a human being. Lu Chang'an paused. Then don't I have become a human being? From a non-human point of view, I will give you another sentence: carry the flying immortals to travel, hold the bright moon and live forever. Throughout the ages, how many people have mourned for a moment in their lives and admired the infinity of the Yangtze River, but they did not know that it would suddenly happen. The legacy echoes in the sad wind. You are no longer immortal, you have the state of mind and attitude of an immortal, living in this world with ease. Carrying the flying immortals to travel, holding the bright moon and ending up forever? So cool. Sunangzio came back to her senses and stared at Lu Chang'an with moist eyes. It seems that I have never thought about the mood and posture of the immortal. She remembers that when she discovered that her appearance was ageless, what she thought was that when they met again, she would still be as beautiful as before, and he would probably still like her like this, right? Have you ever thought about how you would live if your life is long? I just want to find him first and then talk about it. She is not Paul Korchagin, she does not have that kind of awareness, and she does not care that if her eternal appearance is just an illusion and her life ends, she will feel that she has done nothing and regret it. Sunangzio's eyes gradually showed a stubborn look. I don't. This was the reason why Lu Chang'an thought about something when he first saw her, said hello, and was about to turn around and leave. This woman is unreasonable. I don't care about immortality or not, and I don't care about the mood and posture of immortals. What does that have to do with me? Sunangzio didn't care and stared at Lu Chang'an stubbornly. I just want to do what I want to do. Lu Chang'an didn't need to ask her what she wanted to do. An ordinary man would just be moved by her good intentions. But Lu Chang'an is not an ordinary man. The long time and different understanding of life have made his heart not so soft, or it is too difficult to change his concept. You have to do what you have to do, I don't care, but there are some things I hope you won't do a second time, Lu Chang'an said calmly. He was not warning her, he was just telling her. If she doesn't care about what he says, she can do whatever she wants, as long as she is responsible for the consequences. As for what he will do, that is his business, and he will not say it or threaten it. Sunangzio bit her lip and stared at him fiercely. Didn't you threaten Fixian to travel? Where is your Fixian? Sunangzio suddenly sneered, and Nuan. I don't believe it, she happens to be able to live forever. How many women have you met in your life? In the end, besides me, who else can accompany you like a flying fairy? Lu Chang'an did not threaten Fixian to travel, he obviously used the sentence to persuade her, and it was obviously an artistic conception rather than an actual reference. It's really hard to reason with women. This is my business. Lu Chang'an is not a person who likes to argue. He has tried his best to persuade her. If she does not change her mind, he can only use troops to cover up the water. You came here with my robots, right? Let me show you those robots. After Sunangzio finished speaking, she walked towards the bright moon-like floor lamp. The long and short shadows in front of her undulated under the lamp. Her figure looked even more elegant and light in the corridor where light and dark alternated. Lu Chang'an listened to her footsteps fading away and walked over. He really wanted to see these robots. If she was willing to talk about them, he was also willing to ask. Sunangzio walked to the end of the corridor, pressed the elevator button, walked into the elevator, faced Lu Chang'an, and waited for him to come over. Lu Chang'an looked at the interior of the elevator. It was the same model as the ultra-high-speed elevator dedicated to Zhuntang in Bailong Center. So how deep will the underground that such an ultra-high-speed elevator goes to be? This glass house is not high, so there is no need for such an elevator to go up. As Lu Chang'an expected, after Sunangzio turned off the elevator, it took a long time for the elevator to go down. The research base in the Lushan Valley is also yours, right? Lu Chang'an asked casually. It was really you who smashed it, Sunangzio asked back. It was tacit. I didn't smash them, I just killed Qi and Pierre. I should have killed them directly the first time. After all, I am a soft-hearted person. When people mess with me for the first time, I rarely kill them. Just thinking about their inhuman appearance later, they probably complained that I might as well have killed them the first time, and felt a little guilty in my heart. Lu Chang'an recalled it, feeling a little relieved, but later I buried them alive. Me, you are among me, which can be considered a good ending. I think they will be happy and relieved if they have knowledge under the spring. You still like to talk nonsense as always. Sunangzio showed no expression. She was not like Lu Chang'an, who could indulge her mood as she pleased and was heartless. But with him standing next to her, it felt like the past years would eventually make her heartbeat beat. After so many years, isn't the moment I wanted to be like this? But she is no longer in his heart. She couldn't give him a roll of her eyes with a sweet smile and annoyance. This is a familiar feeling, but it is so unfamiliar that it makes people doubt that it is not what they once knew. She clasped her fingers together and raised her head to look diagonally upward, as if she were standing in an elevator with a stranger and neither of them had a mobile phone with them. I went to the valley with Chinyanan that day and met G and Pierre. She and I guessed that your base was underground. Were there no monitoring facilities on the ground at that time? Lu Chang'an didn't mind that he looked like a prehistoric beast at that time. When Sunangzio saw his appearance, he just wanted to confirm. No, the ground facilities there have been abandoned, and the monitoring and data systems have naturally been cut off. Sunangzio stated expressionlessly, so, no matter what shameful things you and that little vixen Yesijan did in the valley, make love. It doesn't matter if it's lingering, you don't have to worry about me peeking. As Sunangzio spoke, her chest rose and fell slightly. She regretted not monitoring her, otherwise she really wanted to see if the little vixen was the same as before. It's natural to feel sad when you see it, but you're even more angry when you don't see it. We didn't do anything. Lu Chang'an sighed softly. Where did all this go? The elevator was stable, and Sunangzio walked out. The conversation just now was not pleasant, especially when I remembered that the little vixen was still so good at seducing people even though she had lost her memory, which made her even more angry. If I had given up my reserve back then, I wouldn't have been so proud. Don't you know how to do such a trick? Who doesn't know how to twist their waist? So her footsteps were hurried and her eyes were distracted, until she reached the end again and stood in front of a closed warehouse door. This place is very large, but Lu Chang'an looked at the walls and corridors and was very sure that this was a former civil air defense project that had undergone further excavation and construction. In fact, this is nothing new. In the 1980s and 1990s, underground civil air defense projects in many places were idle. There was also a lack of special funds for maintenance and management, and some civil air defense projects were piled up with garbage and becoming dilapidated. Later, the relevant departments put forward the policy of use to promote management and use holes to nourish holes, encouraging everyone to use civil air defense projects and allowing them to rent civil air defense projects for a certain fee. In the late 1990s, a large number of immigrants poured into the city, and the use of civil air defense projects increased day by day, and the number increased year by year. It's just that this expansion is a bit exaggerated. Walking to Sunangzio, she opened the closed warehouse door. Lu Chang'an saw a scene that looked like a science fiction blockbuster involving cloning, artificial humans, and bionic humans. Human-like simulation robots are placed in vertical glass cabins. They have different shapes, some are tall or short, some are light and graceful, some are plump, some have long flowing hair, some have short hair and are lively, some are young, 28, or mature and beautiful. Either the body is snow white, or the skin color is pink, or the eyes are as blue as the sea, or the blood pupils are like the moon, and the blonde hair is shawl. It seems that all types of standard beauties in the world are gathered here. Lu Chang'an even saw the names of these robots. There are many famous beauties in history and literature who have been copied here. What are you doing? Collecting beauties. Lu Chang'an looked at Sunangzio in confusion. It's not my collection, this is for you to collect, this is what I gave to you, the harem. It's too tiring to update 9,000 at a time, and everyone is tired of watching it. It's 6,000 today, and it will still be 6,000 tomorrow. This is more appropriate. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Siahua. Chapter 472. The harem has a long history. Starting from the Zhou dynasty when etiquette was flourishing, the emperor was called the king, his wife was called the queen, there were 3 ladies, 9 concubines, 27 wives, and 81 female emperors. Qin Shi Huang unified the world and called the emperor and empress. The first emperor's grandmother was the empress dowager, his mother was the empress dowager, and his concubines were all called madams. The harem in the Western Han dynasty was relatively large. In addition to following the titles of the Qin dynasty, there were also titles for concubines such as beauty, beloved, 8th son, 7th son, chief envoy, and young envoy. During the reign of Emperor Wu, Jiyu was added, and the concubines were divided into 14 levels. Watching dramas with harem content, Zheyi seems to be sparse and ordinary. In fact, in the Han dynasty, the status of Zheyi was equal to that of the prime minister. Theoretically, the title is equivalent to that of princes and kings. Under Zheyi was Jiyu. The girl holding a pot was only 6 years old when she entered the palace, so she directly gave her the title of Jiyu. It was just because there was no such title as Zheyi at that time, and at that time Jiyu was second only to the queen. Level. It's different when you have a background. You don't need to start from the talent show like many heroines in palace dramas. To be precise, Shang Guandandan also belonged to Lu Chang'an's former harem, because this harem didn't just refer to the emperor's wives. Lu Chang'an, who had a real harem and was considered by Shang Guandandan to be licentious, felt completely unmoved and even wanted to laugh when he saw the harem that Sunanqiu had maintained. Laughed out loud. "Do you think I am also a robot?" Lu Chang'an raised the corners of his mouth slightly, shook his head and chuckled, "That's ridiculous. You're not a human anyway." Sunanqiu didn't see any trace of joy, expectation, or emotion on Lu Chang'an's face. He was both relieved and dissatisfied. "Fortunately, my man is not ordinary after all, and ordinary people definitely don't have this attitude. What's dissatisfied is that she even built a harem for him, but she is Sunanqiu, why shouldn't she be jealous? Isn't she jealous of robots? It's just that she held back and spent all her efforts to create such a harem for him, but he didn't feel moved at all. Even if he wanted to refuse, he shouldn't look like this with no interest at all. Could it be that he wasn't even a little bit touched?" Sunanqiu looked carefully and found that there really wasn't one. "I don't want to argue with you about whether I am human or not. I have no interest in what kind of harem these robots will become. I just didn't expect that you have such superb research and development talent in making high-level sex dolls." Lu Chang'an paused. "Thinking about it, just looking at the appearance, those 100,000 level dolls will be wiped out by your products in seconds. Have you ever known about sex dolls?" Sunanqiu looked at Lu Chang'an in bewilderment, with a hint of ridicule. "When have you ever lacked a woman? Since you know I'm not lacking, what kind of harem are you going to get for me?" "Do I need a harem?" Lu Chang'an shook his head. "I have a girlfriend." Sunanqiu laughed again, mixed with many absurd emotions. She was obviously his woman, but his girlfriend was someone else. Whether it's a girlfriend or a wife, it's all about status after all, and women always value status, as well as the keys, real estate certificates, names on the real estate certificates, and rings that represent status. His woman? This is just an ambiguous title. A man's woman may be his beloved, or she may be nothing at all. "Are you a dedicated person now?" Sunanqiu asked with interest. Her mood gradually calmed down. After all these years of hard work, it was not just to vent her emotions after meeting one day. For women, emotions are of course an important factor in directing behavior. However, Sunanqiu has been good at calculation and management since she was a child. If she only cares about venting her emotions now, then she may not have the opportunity to vent her emotions in the future, but if she achieves your own goals, your emotional needs in the future, whether they are sweet or sad, all have a recipient. Actually, I used to do the same. Lu Chang'an didn't want to argue with her on this topic. If you don't think so, that's up to you. Even Lu Chang'an's reply, which is similar to I can't help you if you think that way, which can make a woman depressed the most, also made Sunangxiu raise her anger level a little, but she quickly calmed down. What you think is your business, what I think is of course my business, right? Sunangxiu asked back, but without wanting a response, she pointed to one of the robots. This is Huang Rong. Model worker Huang Rong. Lu Chang'an did not expect that among the robots produced by Sunangxiu, some of them used Huang Rong as a template. In various fanfics, there are quite a few articles with Huang Rong as the heroine. Not only in the Legend of the Condor Heroes, but also in the Legend of the Condor Heroes, Huang Rong is the most popular, far more than Little Dragon Girl. In the final analysis, many people took on the role of Yang and developed complex emotions towards Huang Rong when they read it. It's hard not to say whether it was Jin Yang's intention. Looking at the full text, Huang Rong, mother and daughter, all had the same psychological activity towards Yang. At this moment, I was willing to die for him. In many intentional or unintentional moments like this, the hints allow readers to involuntarily assume that Yang has complicated feelings for Huang Rong. Then it is understandable that Huang Rong is the heroine in the fanfic. This is definitely not simply because of the reader's own preferences, but the result of being guided. The robot Huang Rong created by Sunangxiu is not the young girl Huang Rong who just escaped from Peach Blossom Island, but Huang Rong who is already a woman. At the age of about 30, the charm between her eyebrows has lost the jumping and cunningness of a girl, but the appearance and expression are still made to make people feel that there is still an uninhibited desire in her heart, mixed with maturity. And her upright appearance always easily arouses people's desire to seduce her into revealing the unbridled desires in her heart. A robot that can perform at such a level is already amazing. The face is the most difficult thing to do, not to mention the body line. The skirt is slightly divided, and the slender calves are vaguely delicate and smooth. The lace under the skirt covers the delicate feet, and a few toes that look like carved white jade lightly step on the bilge. The black floor makes it look cleaner and more refined than in real life. Do you think it's just a sex doll? If it's only of this level, would I dare to use her as a collection in your harem? Sunangxiu showed a hint of pride. Although there was a feeling that the technology tree was a little crooked, this is indeed the current situation. Unparalleled robot production level and development route. Your collection. Just say it's your collection. Lu Chang'an waved his hand, not wanting her to take him with him, but he did want to know what was so special about it. Lu Chang'an has always been very interested in high-tech technological products, otherwise he would not have gone to see such an interesting scene as the atomic bomb explosion. You should have seen the yellow-haired girl robot, right? How was it? Sumei asked. Very good. Although the robot felt a bit weird, it was the artificially retarded AI learning system that Professor Crick said, but it still had a sense of technology that transcended the times. That type of robot was actually developed with the goal of being an all-round assistant, so its learning system is particularly complex, which also caused it to absorb too much weird information to interfere with it. Sunangxiu pointed at Huang Rong. It is different, its computer vision capabilities, machine learning capabilities, natural language processing capabilities, speech recognition, and language interaction are all targeted at development, and many restrictions are placed on it, limiting its ability to think independently. But behaves more like a real person, rather than like that robot that likes gold coins, sometimes doing weird things like riding a slide or walking upside down. Machine learning is the core of artificial intelligence, and it has always been a difficult point. From the 1950s to the mid-1960s, it was called the first stage of extreme learning. Compared with the fourth stage from the 1980s to the present, to what extent has it improved? Or is it that the learning ability of your robots has far exceeded the public technical standards? Lu Chang'an had paid attention to the development of robots, and he became more and more puzzled. These skills mastered by Sunangzio felt like scientific research technologies that transcended the times. Is the level of industrial manufacturing shown in this product the true level of science and technology hidden in the world today? Sunangzio smiled. Huangrong's advantage is not that it has machine learning capabilities that transcend the times, but its professionalism. It is a professional harem robot. Lu Chang'an also laughed. Harem robot, what kind of profession is this? We first completed Huangrong's entire life based on the data from the Legend of the Condor Heroes and the Legend of the Condor Heroes, and entered the rich image and text data into the system so that it can retrieve its own information like a real person. Memories and details, while prohibiting it from thinking about unnecessary questions such as why it is Huangrong and whether it is Huangrong. When it officially starts to interact with the outside world, it will think that I am Huangrong. How will I face the problem at hand? To react. Then she should be able to realize that she is Guo Jing's wife. How can she be a professional harem robot? Guo Jing only has one wife, and Huangrong will not become one of others' harem. Lu Chang'an was slightly confused. This is the interesting part. Sunangzio's joking smile was a little dark. When it is officially launched, it will think that it has come to a strange world. It will miss the Legend of the Condor Heroes and the Legend of the Condor Heroes. The world in it will also miss Guo Jing, Guo Xiang, Guo Fu, and Guo Polu. If you want to have a relationship with it, you must get its heart, instead of using it casually like a sex doll. Get its heart. Lu Chang'an finally understood what professional meant. Yes. Just like some gal games, it has a favorability system. What you have to do is to make it gradually forget about Guo Jing, harvest its favorability, and slowly gain its favorability during the interaction with it. Only then will it be willing to have sex with you. Sunangzio opened the hatch and tugged on Huangrong's belt, revealing its beautiful body that would make men desire even though it knew it was a dummy. If you do something like this in the first place, it will rub off on you and make it more difficult. You just turn those love games into a robot, right? Others use consoles, handheld computers and other installed game clients to play, but you play directly with this robot. Lu Chang'an admired Sunangzio's unbridled imagination. Power, imagination comes second, the key is that she can do it. There are so many technological products that humans can think of, but very few of them can be realized. There are similarities, but Huangrong is still a little different. It has the ability to learn, rather than the games you mentioned, which are just changes in a few branch plots at most. During the process of interacting with you, there are unpredictable changes, which is its greatest charm. Sunangzio's fingers pulled the belt of Huangrong and slowly turned it. Her eyes moved, half smiling. Do you want to try to interact with it? Lu Chang'an was a little hesitant, but he just wanted to see the human-machine interaction performance of this robot, rather than being interested in using it. I have no interest in accumulating a robot's favorability towards me. Lu Chang'an still shook his head. The difference between it and a real person is its charm. It's harder to guess the thoughts of a real person, which far exceeds the performance of a robot. At least this robot, if you treat it well, you can gradually gain a lot of favorability. Unlike some people, if you treat him well, he won't take it seriously at all, and even accuses you of trying to plot against him. Sunangzio's eyes lightly nodded at Lu Chang'an, and then turned away as if nothing had happened. Have you plotted against me too many times? Lu Chang'an did not care about her forgetfulness, and still had a faint smile on his face. There were many people who plotted against me in the past, but you are the only one who is still alive now. The first time I plotted against you, you raped me. The second time I plotted against you, it contributed to the good things between you and Yesijin. Sunangzio gritted her teeth. She always thought of all kinds of things in the past, and the worst thing was this first time. And the second time, the first time is sweet, the second time is heart-wrenching, so the mood always switches between the two. Standing in front of him today, Sunangzio thought about these things again, but she didn't know how she felt. She wanted to calm down and think about it carefully, but she couldn't. It's only 3 things. Lu Chang'an smiled. Sunangzio understood what he meant. No matter what the final result was, no matter what good or bad consequences it caused, there should be no chance of it happening a 3rd time. His smile was the same as before, but Sunangzio felt that she had lost the courage and unscrupulous confidence of the past. Not this time. Sunangzio's expression calmed down, her long eyelashes covered the gloom in her eyes, and she took a few steps with her skirt in hand. Each of these robots is different, and each one's identity and background are also different. They are all different. Even the body shape and the internal parts that make you feel different have been carefully adjusted to create a different enjoyment. Each of them has a personality, a story, and a different style. How can such a group of robots not be qualified? Form a harem worth collecting. Lu Chang'an glanced over and nodded slightly. He admitted that Sunangzio's idea was very creative and the work was very good, but he really didn't need it. Many times, what people do is just to impress the other person, or even just to impress themselves, but they forget whether the other person needs it. Many men, no matter how many women are outside, refuse to divorce their wives. Because they know that they are just playing outside, and the women outside are just playthings. These men are still trash, but in this phenomenon I still understand the truth. Sunangzio continued, his eyes falling on Lu Chang'an. If a man cannot be single-minded, then in fact, for him, many women are just playthings. Then I will make these robots the ultimate. You can have all the fun of a plaything you want, and you can even say that you can experience any kind of woman you want. Anyway, it's just for fun, and you don't need to care about whether her soul is sincere or whether her life has rich social attributes. To enrich it with personal meaning. It's like there is a story. A golden key can't open the lock on the door. At this time, an iron key opens it. The iron key proudly says to the golden key, "Do you understand? I am the original wife. Although she was shining with gold and very rich, but only in this way can she win her heart." Golden key said impatiently, "Are you sick? I'm just poking around for fun. What do I want her heart for?" Lu Chang'an has always known that Sunangzio is so extreme and paranoid. Such people can easily reach dead ends when thinking about problems, regardless of whether their own cognition is in line with other people's thoughts. For you, is it necessary for an ordinary woman to understand her heart? As you said, how many people mourn for a moment in their lives and admire the endless Yangtze River? What is the heart and soul of these women? After all, they just grow old and turn into dust in a short period of time. Sunangzio gradually began to persuade with earnest words, "My words are straightforward, but you can't deny that your life is too long, and you can't care so much about every moment. In your eyes, a woman who has been by your side is no different from these interesting robots. What about you? Do you want me to see you the same way?" Lu Chang'an shook his head and asked. "What do you mean by shaking your head?" Sunangzio avoided answering Lu Chang'an's question. She did not think that her judgment on Lu Chang'an was wrong. Over the years, she had never felt that there was a man that could catch her eye, because her heart had already belonged to her. Gradually, she discovered that these ordinary men were not qualified or possible to replace Lu Chang'an, and they had even become her. Neither is it qualified to be a plaything. I once traveled with flying immortals. Where will I come down to earth again? The story of Dongyang and the fairy is nothing more than a mortal's delusion. She also hopes that he can understand that other women are just playthings, no different from the robots she made. Actually, you are still too young after all. You think that since you have gained immortality, you can understand my mentality." Lu Chang'an lowered his head and looked at the extraordinarily delicate and light Sunangzio, still smiling and shaking his head. "How old are you?" Here are 3 sentences from Autumn Water Pian. "A frog in a well cannot speak to the sea, as he is bound to the void. A summer insect cannot speak to the ice, as he is devoted to the time. A scholar of the Song dynasty cannot speak to the Tao, as he is bound to teachings. Also. Then tell me, you are an immortal, living on campus, and falling in love with an 18-year-old girl. How difficult is it for you to understand? Sunangzio couldn't help but stand on tiptoes, holding her hands tightly in her sleeves. He clenched his fists and looked at Lu Chang'an angrily. It's not difficult to understand. Lu Chang'an shook his head. I just happened to like her when I met her, just like I happened to like you when I met you back then. Sunangzio's cheeks were slightly red. Although he only mentioned the past, her heart felt unsatisfactorily sweet for a moment. At that time, he happened to like her, but now the person he happened to like was someone else. Doesn't she know? She knew that he met the person he liked back then. That's why she stubbornly returned to her appearance when they first met him, when she was about to meet him and let him know who she was, thinking that he would still like her appearance at that time. It turns out that not every meeting without saying a word, a hibiscus catching the autumn rain, is so touching. Lu Chang'an looked at the time and looked at Sunangzio standing in front of him. It was not that he was unaware of her tough character and awkward mentality. Just because he likes her, he will be very tolerant of her. In the eyes of a man like him, even if she once tried to assassinate him, he could take care of her as well behaved as a little sheep. But this little sheep just put away her ambition and sharp claws in front of him. She didn't hurt him, but she caused consequences that were difficult for him to deal with. Today, of course, I no longer have the same emotion as before, but there is no reason to forgive and let it be forgotten, and we will meet again. Actually, all the women you have ever had are really just playthings in your eyes. After being silent, Sunangzio still raised her head, showing some stubbornness as always, and looked at him firmly. Lu Chang'an stopped talking. He has never been willing to convince others how they should view him. This is a meaningless thing. People are always more willing to believe what they want to see. The reasons and evidence they add are far more convincing to them than what you show. No matter how much an owner loves his pet and treats it as a family member, if the pet cannot become a human, the owner will not become a pet. All the companionship of the pet is just a short memory in the owner's life, and it cannot be left behind after all. Any important emotional proof? Sunangzio looked into Lu Chang'an's calm eyes. None of your women can have children with you or leave offspring with you, because in essence, they are just playthings, not you. A true companion. Can you? I can. I recommend a super good book. My senior uncle is Lin Zhenying by Bai Pao Fei Yang. Lin Zhenying was in the childhood of many people. He bought a lot of VCDs, no, he rented the videos and viewed on disc.